Welcome to the Sherdog Radio Network preview for UFC on ESPN 66, Gary versus Prates, also known as UFC Kansas City. I'm your host, Ben Duffy of Sherdog.com. With me, as usual, is Keith Shillan, the executive producer of the Sherdog Radio Network. Keith, by the balloons floating in the air behind you, I am reminded to say a happy Easter, happy Resurrection Sunday to all of our listeners who celebrate, obviously, you know, the biggest holiday on the Christian calendar. How are you? How is your family? How was your Easter?
I'm good. So those actually balloons is for my daughter, who is my middle daughter, my second oldest. So she's the middle child, my second daughter. Her birthday's this week, and we had a little birthday party Friday night. So that's what those are for. But happy Easter.
She needs to get into a sport so we hear about her more often on the show.
Yeah, she plays drums, and she does not like. We've tried doing sports with her. She doesn't like sports, but that's okay.
See, if one of my kids was the musician, you'd be hearing about them in preference to the ones that did like.
She will be the one, even though my son is a wrestler. She's the one who actually wrestles me around the house, not my son. So we'll do like little pummeling games. We try to get who can get double underhooks on each other in the kitchen, and my son doesn't do it. But so happy birthday to her. It'll be on Thursday. But also happy Easter, everything. We're taping a day late. It's my fault. I asked Ben to move it a day for me. I had my in-laws in town. Me and Ben talked about that off air. We're not going to go. We're not going to go down that far. I would get divorced, but no, they're always fun to have in town. I'm only joking.
So 14 fight card, UFC Kansas City. I'll jump out first and say I like this card a lot, and you and I mean, we're not shy about calling it out when we think the UFC is just phoning it in, or it's an obvious just this is another fight night. But this one kind of reminds me of when the UFC on ESPN cards used to be a little more special, when they were the ones that were on the road and they weren't a full-fledged pay-per-view, but they did their best to dress it up a little bit above just the Apex cards. It's got a sensational welterweight headliner with Ian Gary and Carlos Prates. Pretty damn good fights all up and down the card. And to the extent it's possible to get some geographic relevance, there are quite a few kind of Midwest, Kansas, Missouri type fighters on here. I'm sure we'll talk about Ahmad Hassanzadeh falling off this card in the worst way imaginable, and the UFC plugged in Gage Young, who is a Missouri guy. I mean, talk me off the ledge here. Is this lining up to be one of the better fight night cards of the year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when we talk about that, we're talking about on ranking sense, name value, stylistic matchups. Now, we can't. Sometimes we have cards like this, and then it stinks, and then sometimes we have cards that we consider no-namers, and it's bangers. So, obviously, we're making a prediction, but on paper, I mean, I give it like an A-. Like, I think it's really good. The main event is fantastic. The reason why I don't give it an A, other than the main event, no other fight could replace the main event. Like, it wouldn't be projected to be a main event on other cards. So that's why it kind of keeps it from an A. But there's some exciting matchups. I really think the main event is as good of a matchup you can make for a non-pay-per-view headliner. Which makes sense. I mean, I'm sure you could put, a title fight in the main event, but like realistically, what you could do as if you're in the area and they announce this as your main event, I'm happy. I'm like, yeah, if this card was in Boston, I'd be like, hell yeah. So
I'm with you. And I'm thinking about this one because one of the fighters from the card I'm about to mention is on this card, but the last time there was just this high level and this sensational a main event was probably the one they threw together last minute between Robert Whittaker and Ikram Aliskerov, kind of late last year.
I think this is much better than main event.
Well, I'm just, talking about like in terms of name value, you've got the red hot undefeated guy against Robert Whittaker, a fairly recent former champ, but no, like in terms of how much I'm actually looking forward to the fight, this is
the banger.
Dynamite. Outside of the Gary versus Prates fight, which fight are you most excited for in this one?
Man, this is I mean, that's definitely the number one, but I'm going to go really, really deep on on the prelims. I mean, I don't know the order in front of me, but I'm gonna go Saaiman Wellmaker. I really like both those guys, and I think that's a really fun stylistic matchup.
I'm glad you mentioned that one. That is on my short list as well. I won't even go into my whole rant on that one until we get to that fight. But yeah, like other fights on this card, even ones where the fighters aren't contenders or they have obvious flaws, they just kind of project to be bangers. Like Matt Schnell versus Jimmy Flick is probably going to end in some sort of sensational finish by one guy or the other. Same with Jackie Amorim versus Polyana Viana. Chikadze versus Onama.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's a thing. If you're a regular viewer of the show, you know that Keith, as a matter of course, does not look at fight odds in advance, like unless something is forced in his face.
Sure.
He's finding out when you guys find out when I read him out. I'm going to have you guess, Keith, who is the biggest favorite on this card?
So there's a couple fights that stand out to me. Schnell over Flick would be one. Pereira over Magomedov would be another one, but I'm gonna go with I think it's the co-main event. I'm gonna go with Zhang over Smith. I think Zhang's gonna be a huge favorite.
He is a huge favorite. He is the second biggest favorite on the card. So I will save the biggest favorite on the card until we get to that fight. Any other general thoughts on UFC Kansas City before we start talking about these prelims?
No, that's a good one. Let's do it.
First up on the UFC Kansas City prelims is a women's bantamweight matchup, knock on wood, between Chelsea Chandler and Joselyne Edwards. Chandler, the 31-year-old Stockton, California native, is 6-3 overall. She's 2-2 in the UFC, having alternated wins and losses since joining the promotion a little under 3 years ago. She's coming in off a loss. She fought most recently last August at UFC on ESPN Tybura versus Spivak, where she dropped a unanimous decision to Yana Santos. If the pattern holds true, she is due to get back in the win column, but in order to do so, she will have to get past Edwards. 29-year-old Panamanian is 14-6 overall. She's 5-4 in the UFC. She is coming in off of a win as well. She fought at UFC Fight Night Hernandez versus Pereira back in October, where she tapped out Tamarez Vidal with a face crank in the third round. That allowed her to snap a 2-fight losing streak dating back almost 2 years. So she's looking to get another win as well. She is favored to get it as she is minus 300, Chandler plus 240 on the rebound. So Chelsea Chandler, she has 4 fights in the UFC. She's won some fights. She's lost some fights. She's gotten the finish. The one thing that she has not done since joining the UFC almost 3 years ago is actually weigh in at 136 pounds. In 4 fights, she has fought at 140-pound planned catch weight. She's fought at featherweight. In fact, I believe Chandler versus Dumont almost 2 years ago was the last women's featherweight fight in the UFC.
Yeah, she's gonna lose the fight diabetes.
Yeah, she pretty much, because since the Dumont fight, she has missed weight for the Josie Nunes fight, weighing in at 137, and then for the Yana Santos fight, she weighed in at 141. She missed halfway to the next weight class, which no longer exists in the UFC. So Chelsea Chandler's got her work cut out for her on Friday, let alone Saturday. In terms of the fight itself, she does have an obvious route to victory. Joselyne Edwards is a very promising fighter whose Achilles heel is her takedown defense. It has improved some. It's still not great. And considering that her best skill is kind of a middle to long distance kickboxer where she can use her long reach, use her really good kicks, inability to keep her butt off the canvas has really kind of limited her rise. She's a good athlete, good kickboxer. She's shown a developing ground game. I mean, hell, she slapped a rear naked choke / face crank on, well, one of the worst fighters in the division in her last fight. But for Chandler, this is her work is cut out for her. Slug her way into the pocket, get on Edwards' hips, drag her down, and put her in danger there. Because while Edwards is easy to take down, her get up game has been improving, I think, faster than her actual takedown defense. So I think that's part of the reason why the line is as wide as it is, because given Chandler's demonstrated problems making bantamweight, even if she goes out in the first round and starts taking Edwards down, Edwards getting up and Chandler having to take her back down again and again, I think is going to start telling on Chandler's cardio. Chandler's she's a good grappler, and despite being a Cesar Gracie protege and yet another fighter that they nicknamed Chick Diaz just because it sounds cool, she doesn't really grapple like a Diaz. She's much more at home as kind of a top position bully and mauler than like an old school Diaz brother, triangle you from the bottom. I just don't think she's going to get a chance to do it. Chandler's been tough and has been she hasn't been I don't believe she's been finished yet she's not been finished yet in the UFC. I'm going to say this makes it to the final horn, but I think Edwards wins this one going away. I could see the first round being pretty even, or at least pretty tentative, as Edwards is cognizant of what Chandler wants to do and maybe doesn't really uncork her arsenal of kicks like she would want to. But as the fight goes along, I think Edwards is going to be the fresher fighter as they go. If Chandler has any success getting takedowns, I think that's going to be diminished as the fight wears on. And I think by the end, it's going to be Edwards just teeing off on Chandler. And even though, Chandler's 2-2 in the UFC and theoretically shouldn't be in any active danger of her job. In fact, this is probably the first fight on a new deal. I think her butt's going to be on the hot seat if Edwards just schools her, which is my pick. Give me Edwards in a dominant decision.
Man, you said that Edwards' get-up game has really improved. It's better than Chandler's sit-up game, I'll tell you that. Man, so you were talking about Chandler about her missing weight so bad, and I just picture that meme where someone's ranting about something, and then there's someone in the background going like this, like trying to hide a little bit. That's Joselyne Edwards when people talk about missing weight, she misses weight herself too. So she'll miss weight by 1 or 2 pounds, not by
6.
Yeah, but Edwards, she's a long and lengthy fighter. She missed weight against Vidal, but she looked great in the actual action. She's a kickboxer, really nice volume. She got some quick hands. They kind of come from her hips, so it's hard to see them coming. Excuse me. She got a nice jab. She attacks with combinations. She can load up a little bit for her striking, but she has plus power. She's got a huge kicking game, hard kicks to the body. She loves those teep kicks. She loves those John Jones oblique kicks. She makes a mistake of throwing a lot of naked leg kicks, so kind of leave it open to be countered. She also avoids strikes by pulling her head straight back. She uses her size well in the clinch, especially that plum clinch, knees inside, elbows inside. You talked about her drastically improved ground game. She's sneaking in takedowns now. I wouldn't say she's a wrestler, but her last fight she was going for a lot of takedowns. She does need to improve her top control. Defensively, I still think she's a bad defensive wrestler. And not the wisest. She kept looking for headlocks against Nora Cornell. You're higher on a get-up game than I am. She does make the mistake of looking for subs off her back, which I hate, but she has 4 subs on her record, including one in her last fight. But she's taking a lot of damage. She was hurt by Eileen Perez in their fight on the feet. Chandler, she's big for the weight class, that's for sure. When you miss 155, as you mentioned, she hasn't made 135 yet. You say she's a Cesar Gracie black belt. She's more like a little Caesar black belt. She's a solid. Listen, I'll call a woman fat, but damn, ain't nobody hit pizza as much as I can. So I should be talking. So, she's a southpaw. She's a volume striker. She throws a lot of overhand lefts. She has some power. She doesn't move her head too much. She really struggled with the speed of Viana Santos in their fight. She likes to use her size and clinch and grind. She's very physically strong. She'll look for some takedowns. She likes some body lock takedowns. She has a good overall top game. I say she's a good grappler, nice back takes. She's got some mean ground pound if she gets on top. She's a bad defensive wrestler, though. She struggled to get off the bottom against Norma Dumont. The one thing I'm hoping for, I'm hoping this is the biggest weight miss by combined fighters in like, they weight together in history. Like, they should just call each other up and be like, dude, let's not tell anybody. Let's just both show up at 160. Just make our own weight class. If you told me years ago, I would have felt better about Chandler. Like, I'd say she'd have the grappling advantage. But I do think when I watch these two, Edwards the one who's making the improvements. I like Edwards a lot here. I think she might be better everywhere. I think she's definitely faster on the feet. She has more weapons on the feet. I think she might be the better overall wrestler, maybe even a better grappler at this point, which is kind of crazy to say. I think she smokes Chandler. I say Edwards. I say she does in a very lopsided decision.
Next up at UFC on ESPN 66 is a featherweight contest between Timothy Cuamba and Roberto Romero. Cuamba, the 26-year-old fighting out of Las Vegas, is 8-3 overall. He is 0-2 since joining the UFC as a veteran of Season 7 of Dana White's Contender Series, where he won but was not immediately signed. Since being signed, he has losses last February to Balaji Oki and last June to Lucas Almeida, both by decision. Worth noting that his UFC debut against Oki was 8 days from his last regional fight on the shortest of short notice. So he gets a bit of a pass for that one. But however you get there, he is 0-2 in the UFC, still looking for his first win, as is his opponent, Romero. 25-year-old Mexican fighting out of Southern California is 8-4-1 overall. He's 0-1 since joining the UFC as a former standout in Combate Global. He made his debut last November at UFC 309 against David Onama, who appears a little further up this card, dropping a unanimous decision. So two gentlemen, a combined 0-3 in the octagon, both looking for their first win. This fight is effectively a pick'em. Right now, Romero is around -115, Cuamba -105, but with neither fighter in the plus money, again, effectively a pick'em. Keith, I'm going to flip this one to you, but
okay.
Off the top, these don't look like terrible fighters, and they're both fairly young.
Yeah. Agreed.
Like, who gets it done? And I'm not even going to ask you if either guy is a future top 15 fighter at 145, because that's ridiculous. But who gets it done? And what's your level of interest in this fight?
I think it is intrigued. To me, this would be like the headliner of a very good, LFA card or something like that. It's the one that people would get interested in, or it almost has like a Contender Series feel to it. Mm-hmm. But I agree. I think both guys.
If this was at LFA, this would be like the Dana White looking for a fight one where he and Dean and Sarah like roll in and watch it for sure.
Yeah. I think if this was a Contender Series fight, this one that Sean Bitter would be like, oh yeah, this is the matchup I'm looking forward to. I think both guys are pretty good. Cuamba, I mean, he's still only 26 years old, as you mentioned. He's a technical striker. He fights behind a high guard defense. His output has been inconsistent. Sometimes he's winning with valiance. Other times he's been a little trigger shy. Some of that might come with lack of experience. He's got nice tight boxing, not a lot of tells. He's got fast hands. I like his right hand. He really steps into his shots. He hated the pressure from Lucas Almeida, kind of forced him on his back foot behind that high guard defense. He was too defensive in that fight. He will wrestle, but he isn't very good at it, which is going to be a theme on this card. I'm going to say something very similar a lot on this card. And he doesn't have a sub on his record, so that's concerning. Romero, he's only 25, so I like that even better. He also took a fight on a few days' notice, and to his credit, he didn't look that bad against David Onama. I mean, he kind of, I think it was going to be a split decision, and I think that was absurd. I think Onama clearly
it was unanimous.
Oh, was unanimous? Okay, all right. Maybe it was split. Maybe it was 29-28, so something like that. But he looked pretty good. But Onama's a good fighter. He kind of on a very short notice. We didn't preview the fight. Like, that's how short notice the fight was.
Yeah.
He's got good output on the feet. He's really fast. Nice short right hand. He rips the body well. He really steps into his shot. He has decent power. I mean, he dropped Onama in the first round of their fight. Good head movement. Lots of kicks, hard calf kicks. He actually checks leg kicks, which I like. He'll close the distance to grind and clinch. He will look for takedowns, but again, he's not great at it. He isn't a good defensive wrestler. He really struggled to get off the bottom when Onama decided to wrestle, which was smart of him in that fight. I think these guys are both very similar style too. Like both young, both strikers. I'd say Cuamba is more technical, but Romero is more explosive. I think the odds, like, I'm glad the odds are really close. I think this is a very close fight. I think both guys will have their moments. Due to the power and the output advantage, I'm going to take Romero to win a very close, I'll say split decision.
I would love to be different, just to be different, make things a little spicy for the viewers, but I see it like you do. I am cautiously optimistic about both of these guys as prospects in the division. They both just good basic physical tools, good size for the division. They're both pretty good athletes. I agree, especially about Cuamba's inconsistent output and maybe inconsistent fight IQ. I do like that you mentioned that he will try to wrestle and it's not always to his best advantage. The two fighters that Cuamba has lost to so far, like Oki and Almeida, they're both big, strong, athletic featherweights. Like even Almeida, being as old as he is I still find him a plus athlete by the standards of the division. Romero seems cut from that same mold, and for that reason, I'm leaning slightly in his direction as well. So give me Romero by decision, to not with a ton of confidence, but should be a real fun fight. Strawweights take the cage next at UFC on ESPN 66 as Jackie Amorim faces off against Polyana Viana. Amorim, the 29-year-old Brazilian, is 9-1 overall. She's 3-1 since joining the UFC as the outgoing LFA strawweight champ. After dropping her UFC debut to Sam Hughes almost exactly 2 years ago, she has rattled off 3 straight wins over Montserrat Ruiz, Corey McKenna, and Vanessa Demopoulos. The most recent of those, the Demopoulos fight, was back in September at UFC Fight Night, Burns versus Brady. It was her second first-round armbar submission in a row. She will look to make it 3 in a row, at least 3 wins in a row, against Viana. 32-year-old Brazilian is 13-7 overall. She is 4-6 since joining the UFC as the outgoing Jungle Fight strawweight champ. She is on a 2-fight losing streak, including her lone cage appearance of last year. She fought most recently a little over a year ago at UFC 297, getting pounded out on the ground by Jillian Robertson in the second round. So she will be looking to snap the second losing streak of her UFC run. She is not favored to do so, as Amorim is an overwhelming favorite here. She is minus 550, Viana plus 410. I get why the line is as wide as it is. I mean, probably long since, but I've definitely at this point fallen out of love with Polyana Viana as a fighter. She had some promise. She had some promise when she got to the UFC. An impressive regional highlight reel, a prestigious regional title, the Jungle Fight strawweight division, especially 7 years ago when she was still in it, was a pretty good breeding ground for UFC level fighters. But at the UFC level, her best single skill is probably her offensive grappling, but she's yet another fighter that just seems to lack the technique to get fights to the ground on her terms, the physical strength, the athleticism, even more so than other women that we talk about that same way. I mean, hell, Jillian Robertson is somebody that's kind of the main feature in her scouting report, and Robertson bullied Polyana Viana. At this point, Viana's only wins have come against women who either have made horrible mistakes or just simply aren't on a UFC level. Against everyone else, she's struggled because on top of not really having the physicality or technique to bring her best weapons to bear, she doesn't have the best fight IQ. She's hyper aggressive to the point of being reckless. If I were to make a comparison, she's like the bad Julian Erosa. She's like the Julian Erosa of his first try or two in the UFC, where he was this tall, lanky guy who had some fantastic offensive tools, but just was so reckless and lacked durability that more often than not, he would run into his opponent's best weapons and just get crushed. Against Amorim, that's going to be a death sentence. Amorim is also at her best on the ground, but unlike Viana, she has a good focused game plan to get fights. Like she fights to her best advantage in a way that Viana really doesn't. And then physically, Amorim is basically the opposite. She's short, powerfully built. I mean, she's not quite like Jessica Andrade stocky, but she's definitely a shorter, more muscular fighter. She doesn't have incredible wrestling technique, but she has a knack for getting inside and getting body locks and clinch situations on taller, rangier fighters that she can then use to get the fight to the ground. And even on the feet, she's not helpless. Like she's a hard hitter, and she's willing to exchange on the feet. She has some defensive lapses that thus far have not cost her too badly. Yeah, this is just an absolutely dreadful matchup for Viana. And I'm not even going to say stylistic matchup, because almost anybody who does something well and knows what they want to do is a bad matchup for Polyana Viana at this point. Viana is an armbar specialist. I think 6 of her career subs are by armbar. Amorim is turning into one in the battle of the armbar specialists. Give me Amorim by a mile. I'll take Amorim by second round submission. And yeah, armbar sounds about right to me.
Yeah. Polyana Viana, I mean, she's shown some improvements in her striking, but I mean, like you said, it still isn't a strength. I mean, I'd say she's an out striker. She wants to work from distance, and then she's thrown a lot of the same side attacks. She does a lot of like right hooks in a row. She's shown a little power. She did starch Jinyu Fry, but that to me I think is a concession. She's open to leg kicks. She keeps her chin high in the air. So she wants to stay on the outside and kind of strike, but like avoid being hit. And then suddenly she's going to burst into the pocket, look for takedowns and stuff. She will try to get the fight down, but she will struggle to get there. She will shoot without any setup. She will pull guard, which might not be a wise idea against Jaqueline Amorim. She is a submission artist. I think her ground game is grossly overrated. I mean, they got to pretend that she's the JV version of Mackenzie Dern, and that just simply isn't the case. She did get like submissions over Emily Whitmire and Mallory Martin. So if you get lazy, you can get caught. She can get a submission to scramble, but she's a lot of old school. She's going to get put on her back. She's a terrible defensive wrestler. She struggles to get back up. She plays BJJ off her back too much. A perfect example of that is her fight against Tabitha Ricci. And that just doesn't work in modern MMA. She needs a sweep or something like that to get on top. And she's also been subbed a lot herself. I mean, she subbed her Veronica Macedo, Asmin Lucindo. If she gets on top, I like her ground and pound though. Amorim, she's a good athlete. She's not a very technical striker, but she has some power. Similar to Viana, her striking is to close the distance. She'll throw kicks because she doesn't care if her opponent catches them. But the kicks will also leave her open to get tagged because she really doesn't set them up. She's a much better wrestler than Viana. I'd say she's a pretty solid wrestler. She got some nice body lock takedowns. She has some fast entries. She'll shoot sometimes without a setup. But to her credit, if she gets the hip, she's good at cutting the corner. She also will pull guard to get the fight to the ground. I'd say she's a much better overall grappler. Like she's a pretty incredible grappler. She gets a hard ground and pound. She's a BJJ black belt. She's competed in the highest level competitions. She's a huge submission threat. I think she got 7 or 8 subs on her record already. She can get subs from all positions. She chains submissions attempts together. I mean, she might have pulled the inside of the glove against Demopoulos, but she also had a slick armbar against Demopoulos. I'm with you, man. I think Amorim is just a terrible stylistic matchup for Viana. I expect Amorim to take Viana down. They grapple a little bit, but I think Amorim catches her. You said second round. I'm going to say just even quicker. I'm going to give Amorim by first round submission.
We head next to the men's bantamweight division as Malcolm Wellmaker makes his UFC debut against Cameron Saaiman. Wellmaker, the 30-year-old Georgia native, is a perfect 8-0 as a professional. This will be his UFC debut. He fought on Dana White's Contender Series last August, knocking out Adam Bramhall in the first round. He will look to pull off a similarly impressive feat here at the expense of Saaiman. 24-year-old South African is 9-2 overall. He's 3-2 since joining the UFC out of season 6 of Dana White's Contender Series and as the outgoing EFC bantamweight champ. He opened his professional career 9-0. He has lost his last 2 fights dating back 18 months at this point. In his lone cage appearance of last year, just a little over a year ago in March, he got knocked out early in the second round by Peyton Talbot. Prior to that, he dropped a unanimous decision to Christian Rodriguez. So Saaiman looking to snap the first losing streak of his career. This fight is another one that is a dead pick'em. Both gentlemen are out there at -110. Cameron Saaiman is just 24 years old. I fully admit that to some extent, mentally, if not verbally, like I don't remember what I said on, the preview of his last fight or the recaps of his last 2, but mentally, I jumped off the Cameron Saaiman express to some extent. But you know what? He's 24 years old. He lost his last 2 fights to Peyton Talbot, who might be the hottest prospect in the entire division right now, and Christian Rodriguez, who was a borderline top 10 bantamweight before moving up to featherweight, where he continues to experience success. Those are losses that if Saaiman gets back to winning here, those are going to age well and be forgotten. Saaiman still has what he had. He is a fantastic athlete, like a good sized guy for the division. Like he's tall for the division, has a good wingspan, but also plenty of muscle in his frame. He's a well-rounded fighter. While you look at his record and his wins have been primarily by knockout, I think he's a good wrestler and a good grappler who just happens to prefer to conduct his business on the feet. I've not given up on Saaiman at all. But what's concerning to me is how he looked when faced with adversity. Really, if anything, especially in the Rodriguez fight. Like Peyton Talbot just kind of smoked Saaiman, and maybe he always will. We don't know where Talbot's ceiling is going to end up. But when Saaiman took on Christian Rodriguez, which again at this point was almost exactly 18 months ago, he looked like a young fighter who had never faced serious adversity yet. He looked kind of discouraged and clueless. And if you followed our show for any length of time, we both will reiterate when we say a fighter wilted or quit or faded, we're not talking about being afraid. We're just talking about being in a situation that your prior fight experience and your camp have not prepared you for, and just being like, I don't have the answers for this guy. That's what he looked like against Christian Rodriguez. Just Rodriguez was patient, managed the distance much better than Saaiman, and just seemed to be a step ahead. He wrestled when Saaiman wanted to strike. He struck when Saaiman wanted to wrestle. He just sort of led the dance the whole time, and Saaiman looked discouraged and beat up by the end of it. If something has snapped in Saaiman, like if he's mentally checked out on any level, this could be a hell of a landing in the UFC for Malcolm Wellmaker. But having said that, as good as Wellmaker's record looks, and he's 8-0, has a ton of first round finishes. He crushed Adam Bramhall on the Contender Series, just one punch, face planted him. He's not Peyton Talbot or Christian Rodriguez. Like Rodriguez is an extremely well-rounded, well-schooled fighter who, kind of like I said against Saaiman, just fights to his best advantage and takes advantage of his opponent's shortcomings, whatever they may be. And then Peyton Talbot is just this freakishly fast, athletic guy who throws a hurricane of strikes. Neither of those is really Malcolm Wellmaker. Wellmaker's best wins have usually turned on one moment of big offense. He kind of times and waits his moments to catch a guy like he caught Adam Bramholt. And it doesn't always end in a one-punch KO, but he depends on single moments of offense that turn the fight in his favor. There's every chance he'll find one of those against Saaiman, and it's an open question how Saaiman will react if Wellmaker clocks him or Wellmaker times him for just a beautiful blast double, scoops him up and dumps him on his ass. But if he doesn't find one of those, like if you watch any of Wellmaker's fights that have gone the distance, it involves a lot of waiting for those moments. It'll be interesting to make the comparison. It'll be interesting to see how Wellmaker bounces back from his first career loss when and however it comes. I'm actually picking it to happen here. If Saaiman is still the guy that won his first 9 career fights, or even the guy that showed up against Rodriguez, but with that little bit of extra experience, I think he's probably better than Wellmaker most places, except for maybe like one-shot power. He can match his athleticism. He can match his size. He has a very well-rounded skill set of his own. Durability and cardio have not shown to be particularly severe issues for him. So this fight is a pick'em, but give me Saaiman to win this in a way that makes it look like maybe he should have been favored, and maybe the betting public has kind of jumped ship on him after those back-to-back losses. But give me Cameron Saaiman to kind of remind everybody who he is and reassert himself as one of the more interesting up-and-coming young prospects in this division. Give me Saaiman in a pretty one-sided decision.
Wow. Yeah, I think this is a really great fight. As I mentioned on the intro of the show, this is one of the fights I'm looking most forward to. I just think both guys are really good. I think Wellmaker is a really good addition to the UFC, and I haven't jumped off the bandwagon of Saaiman. I mean, he's the thing that stands out to me. He's a really good athlete. You mentioned he's only 24 years old. We've said it over and over again. Don't give up on guys too early. We can give you countless times of guys taking losses when they're 22, 23, and look better later on in their career. He's a southpaw, though he will fight out of both stances. He's a high volume striker, high volume kickboxer. He likes to stand right in front of his foe and just batter to them with volume and technique. He is playing with fire as he makes himself a big target by standing right in front of his foe. He also doesn't set up his shots well with feints. He'll kind of just attack. He has some quick hands. He attacks with combos. I love his straight left. He's got a great check right hook from the southpaw stance. He has a lot of variety in striking, which I like. Not the biggest power puncher, but he's super young, so he's still kind of coming into his power years. He'll throw a lot of kicks. He likes some spinning back kicks. He will sneak in some takedowns. Good at winning scrambles. He's a poor defensive wrestler, though, but he does have a good get-up game. Go back to like the Terrence Mitchell fight. If he gets on top, he's got good ground and pound. He's got a great guillotine that he's not scared to jump. He's got really good cardio. My big concern, he's only 24, but I'm a little worried about his chin. I mean, he took a hellacious beating from Peyton Talbot. So wonder if that holds over. And also wonder if he gets a little trigger shy because of that. Wellmaker, on the other hand, like I said, I think he's a good addition. He's also a good striker. He switches stance a lot. He's elusive, good boxing, very poised and relaxed, works well from distance. He's got some fast hands, nice fast jab. I'd say he's got plus power. He had a great counter right hand KO on the Contender Series, as you mentioned, was like, I want to say he lulled him and then caught him, but just his opponent was kind of overextending, and he just timed it perfect. So he's really good at beating guys to the point of contact. Hard body kicks. He will drop his hands a little bit, relying on really good head movement. And he also relies, like, he hides behind his lead shoulder, which is a very boxing style. But he doesn't bring the hand up. He doesn't do like the Philly shell with it. He just kind of hides behind the shoulder. He's got hard body kicks, hard calf kicks. He will look for takedowns, but again, I wouldn't categorize him as a wrestler. Not very good at it. He doesn't really set up his entries. Though if he gets to fight the ground, he's got two subs. This is a fantastic fight. I like both fighters. I think both are talented. Saaiman, I think, has more avenues for victory, while Wellmaker might be the more technical and has more power. This is a step up in competition for Wellmaker. Saaiman is also younger, so he's at the point where he can still make big improvements. I'm going to say that's got me leaning towards Saaiman. I think Saaiman is smart enough to sneak in and take down the 2, win some close rounds. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be much closer than you say. I was really on the fence, but give me Saaiman by split decision.
We stay in the men's bantamweight division at UFC Kansas City as Damon Blackshear faces off against Alateng Heili. Blackshear, the 30-year-old North Carolina native training out of South Florida, is 16-7-1 overall. He's 4-3-1 since joining the UFC as the outgoing CFFC bantamweight champ. He's on a 2-fight win streak, comprising his last cage appearance of 2024 and his first of this year. He fought most recently just 6 weeks ago at UFC Fight Night, Vettori versus Dolidze, tapping out Cody Gibson in the second round. He makes a fairly quick turnaround here against Alateng Heili as he looks to make it 3 wins in a row. Alateng Heili, 33-year-old from Inner Mongolia, is 17-9-2 overall. He's 5-2-1 in the UFC, and he won his last time out as well. His most recent cage appearance was last May at UFC Fight Night Barboza versus Murphy, where he won a unanimous decision over Clages and Rodriguez. Odds on this one favor Blackshear pretty heavily. He's minus 375, with Alateng Heili out there around plus 275 or plus 280 coming back. I'll probably always be nervous about Damon Blackshear as this big a favorite, just because he's such a talent and brings such a unique offensive skill set to fights at his best, but he's been vulnerable. And I mean, even his 18-second knockout by Montel Jackson aside, he's been caught and hurt by several of his opponents. The good things about Blackshear, he presents a nearly unique matchup problem just in terms of his physical build. It's very similar to Randy Brown, who appears further up the card, in that he's very tall for the division, and a lot of it is legs. Just but he has very long arms, which he does try to use to his best advantage. He in the striking, he will try to keep things on the outside with like a nice long jab, try to use his kicks, but at his best, he is just a wild, scramble-heavy offensive grappler. He made a big splash early in his UFC run by slapping a twister on Jose Johnson. I think he was the second UFC fighter ever to get a twister. But his grappling game is such that he has had pseudo twister setups on like 4 or 5 of his opponents that haven't panned out. That's kind of how he rolls. Pun fully intended, I guess. He maybe built a little like Randy Brown, but on the ground, he's more like just a wildly aggressive Aljamain Sterling, where he likes the funk, he trusts his athleticism, he trusts his experience, he trusts his instincts on the ground to just bring him out on the winning side in wild scrambles. He just trusts himself to find a way to take his opponent's back or find his neck or find an arm in transition. The problem is he's capable of losing grappling exchanges to guys that might not be as big or as gifted, but are just more positionally sound, more conservative, more defensively aware. And again, he's gotten clocked on the feet by numerous of his opponents, most notably Montel Jackson, who just one-shotted him like 15 seconds into their fight. And that was less than a year ago. He's won 2 since then, both by submission. So he appears to be back on track as an interesting up-and-comer in the division. But Alateng Heili, he does fit certain parts of the mold of guys that have given Blackshear trouble. Like Alateng Heili is a guy with good, solid power who is defensively pretty sound on the feet and actively looking for the counter. I don't favor Alateng Heili to win this fight, but again, if I were a betting man, or if this were a betting show, I'd be saying stay away from Damon Blackshear as an almost 4-1 favorite. Because, yeah, Alateng Heili is also pretty capable of taking care of himself on the ground. Give me Blackshear to win a decision here, but I could see Alateng Heili giving him a few scary moments on the feet, and I don't think this ends in a twister or a calf slicer or a Siluev stretch or anything. I think Alateng Heili is just a little too conservative, a little too smart on the ground, a little too capable of taking care of himself for Blackshear to get something for the highlight reel. So give me an uncommonly workmanlike performance from Damon Blackshear, but to get his hand raised at the end.
This is a fun fight. Blackshear is a guy that he's done much better in the UFC than I first originally thought he would when he came in, but he's really kind of won me over. He's a solid athlete on the feet. He's got nice output, kind of just touches, and when there's an opening, he explodes. He can get wild and instead of staying tight, he fights behind a high guard defense. He'll throw a lot of spinning attacks. He crushed Cody Stamen with a flying switch knee. I like his kicking game, teep kicks up the middle, hard calf kicks. He's a very good wrestler. I'm not calling him like a black Bo Nickel or anything like that. But he's good. He's very creative with the scrambles and winning it. Some super slick back takes. He's a huge submission threat. He's got 11 submission wins. Obviously, he's known for that twister submission. He isn't the best defensive wrestler though. He will get taken down. But some of that hasn't been. He's a threat off his back. But to the negative, he'll play BJJ instead of working back to his feet. Alateng Heili, I think you have a much better read on him than I do. I don't know how I feel about this guy. I mean, one fight he looks great. Other fights he looks terrible. Like there's like no medium area with this guy. He's an okay striker, not the best output, not the fastest. He's a slip and rip striker. He's got a nice jab. I love his counter right. He will work the body. He showed power against Kevin Kroom. He has some mean leg kicks, but he's open to leg kicks. I mean, Casey Kennedy beat him up a million years ago with leg kicks, and Chris Gutierrez murders everybody with leg kicks. But Alateng Heili is a good example of vintage Chris Gutierrez. He showed durability. I mean, he's taken beatings in fight, and in fairness, hasn't been knocked out in the UFC. He's a solid wrestler. I mean, he just wrestled Clitson Rodriguez to a victory. He like snap singles. He's got a good top game. He will stall on top if he like. He's got no problem being on top if the crowd is booing. I don't know. It'd be wise for him to try to grapple with Blackshear. I feel much better about Blackshear in this matchup than you do. I think Blackshear is actually a bad stylistic matchup for Heili. I think Blackshear might be even better on the feet. He's definitely going to be the better grappler. I think he's going to try to take Blackshear down, and when he does, I think he's going to get sub for it. I'm super high in Blackshear's submission game. I'm going to say Blackshear does it. I'll say he subs him in the second round.
Next up on the UFC Kansas City prelims is a featherweight matchup between Chris Gutierrez and John Castaneda. This fight was actually scheduled to take place last month at UFC 313. It got bumped to this card. We already previewed it, so I'm going to just plug that 6-week-old footage in here. It is worth noting that when we previewed it back the first week of March, Castaneda was a very slight favorite. He was like -120, Gutierrez +105. Those odds have more or less flipped. It is now Gutierrez who is a slight favorite at -125 or -130. Castaneda out there around +110. At the time, I picked Gutierrez by decision. You picked Castaneda. Has anything happened in the meanwhile to change your pick on this one?
Nope.
Me either. So we have our first disagreement of UFC Kansas City, but it is old disagreement that I'm serving back up to you. Buckle in for this ancient footage, and we'll be back in a few minutes. First up at UFC 313 is a hastily put together men's featherweight matchup between Chris Gutierrez and John Castaneda. Gutierrez, the 33-year-old Texan by way of Colorado, is 21-6-2 overall. He's 9-3-1 in the UFC and is coming into this fight off of a win. He fought just once last year. It was at UFC on ESPN, Tybura versus Spivak in August, where he took a unanimous decision over Kwang Lee. That allowed him to bounce back from disappointment in his first UFC headliner, as back in December of 2023, he had come out on the wrong end of a unanimous decision against Song Yadong in the headliner of UFC Fight Night 233. He will look to string together 2 straight wins for the first time in over 2 years, had been scheduled to take on Gene Matsumoto in a bantamweight matchup. He is, of course, a customary bantamweight. Matsumoto fell off, and less than 24 hours ago, as of when we're talking right now, John Castaneda steps in. Castaneda, also a habitual bantamweight, had been scheduled to fight Douglas Silva de Andrade last weekend at UFC Vegas 103. Silva de Andrade fell off the card. Castaneda stayed at least close enough to weight that he could slot right in here at this planned 145-pound match.
So Ben, before, because we always have that one person be like, he didn't fall off. Matsumoto got moved to fight Rob Font. So
he fell,
and I thought he should have won. And
Yeah.
I thought he should have won. But anyways, but you know, there'll be one person be like, Ben, you just did a 3-hour show. How dare you use one word that out of context or something?
Oh, well, I'll make worse mistakes than that tonight, folks. Take that to the bank. Castaneda, the 33-year-old, I believe he's actually Texan originally as well, but longtime Minnesota native, 21-7 overall, 4-3 in the UFC since joining as a standout from Combate Americas. He fought most recently last June at UFC on ESPN, Cannonier versus Imavov, where he dropped a unanimous decision to Daniel Marcos in a 140-pound catchweight match. Odds on this one, despite Castaneda being the one, stepping in on more of a short notice, he is the slight favorite. He is minus 125. Gutierrez out there plus 105. If I'm Chris Gutierrez, most fighters are looking for any ammunition to motivate themselves. Every fighter in the world is like, nobody believes in me, nobody respects me. But Chris Gutierrez would have a point if he wanted to say, how did I go from headlining a fight night 14 or 15 months ago to being an underdog in the opening bout of the prelims 2 fights later? Oh, and by the way, I won my last fight.
This guy just weighed in a week ago, and he has got to do it again.
Yeah, and yeah, he gets 10 extra pounds, but
Still,
I like this fight a lot. I mean, in terms of promising a fun, action-packed fight, I like it as much as I liked the Matsumoto fight. I like it as much as I liked Castaneda versus Douglas Silva de Andrade. But I've not jumped entirely off the Chris Gutierrez bandwagon yet. If you'd asked me 2 years ago, and let's face it, we talked about this guy 2 years ago because we've been doing this show for 5 years now. Before, losing to Pedro Muniz, before losing to Song Yadong, I would have said Chris Gutierrez is one of the scariest up-and-coming guys in the bantamweight division, and I think he tops out as kind of a bottom half of the top 10 type guy. Even with the losses to Muniz and Song, I still kind of feel that way about him. He's even now, he's 33. He is a sharp kickboxer, still some of the better leg kicks in the division. Like, Factory X must just be hell on calves with people like him and Jonathan Martinez there. He is generally able to stay upright enough to make his game work. Like, Song Yadong took him down a bunch of times, but Song he seemed bigger, stronger, and just seemed a step ahead of him that whole fight. Just, it felt to me like Song was the guy who was looking to, he would wrestle when Gutierrez was looking to strike. He would strike when Gutierrez was looking for the takedown, and just kind of stayed a step ahead of him across most of 5 rounds. That's it. I mean, that's what it's really taken to kind of stop Chris Gutierrez, even in the last couple of years. I'm not saying that John Castaneda can't follow that plan to victory, because at his best, he is a guy that mixes up striking and grappling pretty seamlessly. But I'm not comfortable picking it. I think this is going to turn into a fun fight and probably a good bounce back fight for Gutierrez. Give me Gutierrez to win by decision here. And again, unlike the Song fight, for Gutierrez to be the guy who's a little more in control of the rhythm of the fight. I think Gutierrez's leg kicks are probably going to give Castaneda trouble. If Castaneda is smart, he'll mix in takedowns, to either actually complete the takedown and do work there, or at least just to give Gutierrez something to think about and something to stop his kicking game from really getting untracked. But yeah, give me Gutierrez to just kind of feel a step ahead in a competitive fight for at least 2 out of 3 rounds and pick up the decision here. So mild upset for me right out of the gate.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised. I thought Gutierrez would be the favorite on that. Again, just because of what you talked about being that this guy was headlining cards not that long ago and was a top 10, top 15 ranked guy. And Castaneda hasn't come close to that level yet. I do want to note this, and I could be wrong on this. So Castaneda weighed in at 140 a week ago, and I think this fight is 135.
No, this one's definitely 145. I checked.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah.
I'm wrong. So, all right. So he gets extra 5 pounds. So not extra 10,
Yeah.
but okay. I'll still blame you for that one.
Cool.
Yeah, this was announced like late last night. I was at wrestling for 30 hours, work today. This one very extremely watched the last 2 fights kind of. So this one is not going to be my lock of the night. Stay away from it. Gutierrez, I kind of got a feel on this guy. He's a good striker. The thing is, I'm never sure about his output. One fight, he has this great output. The next fight, he doesn't step on the gas. He sometimes even wins. Like in his last fight, he was kind of cruising. He was giving away moments in the fight. Sometimes he'll give away all rounds because of it. He is a technical striker. He uses movement well to get his opponents to kind of guess and chase him and be out of position so he can counter strike. He can back up and be trapped though sometimes. He doesn't like when he's like forced on his back foot where he's not really initiating, like when he did against Pedro Muniz. When he lets his hands go, he just touches until there's an opening. He's never had big power. He's more of a cumulative fighter, which is an issue if he doesn't let his hands go. Now, he uses feints to draw out attacks really well so he can counter strike. He's got a nice jab. He touches the body a lot. He gets his opponents kind of guessing with all his variety. He's good at changing the speed of his kicks, speed of his strikes, and then he has a big kicking game. Obviously, legendary calf kicks. I always go back to like the Vince Morales where he finished him with calf kicks. He doesn't check leg kicks that much himself, though. He's got a beautiful step-in knee. I mean, we saw that against Frankie Edgar. He doesn't look to offensive wrestle much, and I'd say he's a weak defensive wrestler. I think you go back to like the Cody Durden fight, that'll prove that. He also struggles to get off the bottom. We saw that against Song Yadong. And he plays jiu-jitsu too much, and it's 2025. Like, stop playing jiu-jitsu. John Castaneda, he's a southpaw, long and lengthy striker, good footwork. He likes to kind of strike from range. He hates being pressured back. We saw that against Daniel Santos. He cuts angles really well, which I like. He's got good volume, nice straight shots down the pipe. I love his straight left, short, tight shots, no tells. He has a lot of variety in striking, nice power. He knocked out Eddie Wineland. He hurt Miles Johns. He hurt, even in the loss to Santos, he hurt Santos. He hurt Mohan Gafarov, which is a really, big win. Hard body kicks. He's got a great high kick, no tells on that. He has a lot of defensive issues. He lacks head movement. He's very hittable. He's a good wrestler, though. You talked about him mixing in his takedowns. He mixes his takedowns and striking well. And if you look at his record, he's got a lot of takedowns in the UFC, which is why I thought he made a big mistake, because he quit his wrestling very early on against Daniel Marcos, especially that's the guy you want to wrestle. He's good at winning scrambles. He has 7 subs on his record. He did gas out a little bit against Daniel Santos. I mean, like I said, I didn't get to do a lot of tape study on this one. I really flip-flopped on this one. I think both have avenues for victory. If you could promise me that Gutierrez shows up, I think he wins. The problem is I really don't trust that. And man, I think we get a back and forth match. I totally understand why you're taking Gutierrez. I think I was kind of leaning that way. But I'm going to say we might have a little bit of a passing the torch moment. I don't like that Castaneda just had to weigh in. I'm a little worried about that. But Gutierrez is not a guy who's going to beat him with volume because of that. I think Castaneda is actually going to have the more volume, and I think he can sneak in some takedowns and hold Gutierrez for some time. So I think we have a really, really close fight out the gate. Give me Castaneda by split decision.
Next up at UFC on ESPN 66, we have a lightweight matchup between Evan Elder and the debuting Gage Young. Elder, the 28-year-old Californian fighting out of Las Vegas, is 9-2 overall. He's 2-2 in the UFC. That's that 2-2 reflects him losing his first two fights in the UFC to Preston Parsons and Nazim Sadikov. But since then, he's rattled off back-to-back wins over Gennaro Valdez and Darius Flowers. The most recent of those, the Flowers win, was a second-round submission last July at UFC on ESPN, Namajunas versus Cortez. It is worth noting that fight took place at a planned welterweight, but he is back down in his preferred weight class here. He had been scheduled, Elder had, to face Ahmad Hassanzadeh. That fight was scrapped as Hassanzadeh was arrested this week for sexual assault of a minor, multiple counts. It appears to be a very ugly situation. The UFC dropped him immediately, and in steps Gage Young, a local Kansas City area fighter, taking advantage on short notice. The 24-year-old Kansas City native is 9-2 overall. He fought most recently last December at FAC 27. Worth noting that FAC is Kansas City's kind of home promotion. But prior to that, he did fight on the Contender Series, dropping a unanimous decision to Quillan Salkild back in September. So Young steps in here. Unsurprisingly, he is the underdog. Elder is minus 250, Young plus 200. I'm not going to come out here and pretend that like Gage Young is a lights out prospect, but as a 24-year-old with some decent skills and decent athleticism, he's a worthwhile addition to the division. Like, he didn't look great against Quillan Salkild, but that was a big step up for him from the kind of people he'd been crushing in FAC. And when he went back to FAC after losing on the Contender Series, he went right back to what he was used to doing. If you're looking at his picture below Keith's face and mine on the YouTube preview, the posture he's standing in makes it look like he has like these short little T-Rex Artem Lobov arms. That is not correct, but he doesn't have the greatest reach. He's listed at 5'9" and 155 pounds, but he's got a little of a Michael Chandler type build where he's shorter than he is, like just kind of a blocky, muscular, stocky, lightweight. He doesn't make that he doesn't maximize his reach because he doesn't throw the straightest punches in the world, but he has big power. His calling card, at least in the Kansas City area, has just been being faster to the punch and bigger on the punch than his opponents. Like, he's just got a bunch of first and early second round knockouts where he's overmatched fighters by coming forward, throwing basic combinations that quickly devolve into just a swarm of haymakers, like when he gets in the pocket and the punches start flying. It's made him exciting and given him a hell of a highlight reel on a regional level, but we already saw against Salkild what it looks like when he faces a guy with better athleticism, better fundamental boxing, better footwork. Young, if he sticks in the UFC, it's going to be a learning process. He's going to take a few more L's. But again, at 24, with the kind of power that's kind of hard to coach, he has potential. And it's not like Elder has been this lights out fighter either. Like after dropping his first 2 UFC fights, I figured he was on his way out the door quickly. Instead, he sort of descended down to a level where he's, fighting fighters closer to his own skill level. So both of these seem like guys that could stick around the UFC for a while. Neither of them look to me like a threat to make the top 25 at lightweight, let alone the top 10. But yeah, one of them's 28, one's 24. And at the very least, this should be a very entertaining fight. Young wants to get in close and brawl. Elder can wrestle, but given what I've seen from him, I think he's probably more likely to oblige Young with the kind of fight he wants. So this is probably going to be a wild scrap until one of them catches the other. If it's Elder catching Young, I have more faith in Elder's ground game that he could follow Young to the ground and either pound him out or, slap him around until he gives up mounts or gives up his back and then choke him out. So I do favor Elder in this one. I understand why he's a greater than 2-1 favorite, even leaving aside the fact that Young is stepping up on very short notice. Give me Elder. And I'm going to say he gets a second round TKO on the ground after a wild fight for whatever 7 or 8 or 9 minutes it lasts. But yeah, Young is basically playing with house money here. And so for that matter is Elder. Like he had the rug pulled out from under him in one of the nastiest ways imaginable. But yeah, give me Elder by second round KO here in a fun prelim banger.
Yeah. One thing that we like to do, we like to make a lot of jokes, but when you have a situation like this Hazanzada guy is in, I mean, that's as terrible of a situation that I can imagine anybody being in. Obviously innocent to proving guilty, but I know I can.
And if he's innocent, then even more reason not to make jokes about it.
Oh yeah. I will say this. And I know I speak for Ben. I know I speak for everybody. Sure, dog. If obviously innocent, proven guilty, but if he did do these things, then he's a terrible human being who should rot in hell.
Yeah.
For some people might know, and those who don't, I'm a detective. My real job, and it's funny because I was talking to a listener probably a while ago, but maybe a couple months ago, and just asking about my job, and so I'm a major crimes detective, so I do some big ones, but one I do a lot is one I should say I'm the most passionate about are these type of accusations, because you can justify a murder, right? Obviously, I'm not saying, but you could find a murder that you could say, okay, I can understand that. Cain Velasquez type situation where if you murdered the guy, you can't ever justify a child molestation, or this might be some sounds from based on the situation with another person. It might be a human trafficking or something. Just and based on the bail that was set, I would guess the evidence is very strong. So, so if this is true, screw that guy. Anyways, back to and like I said, it's one of my most passions in the world is putting child molesters in jail is a passion of mine. So, back to this fight. I think this is a really fun fight because I'm not that high on either guy. But they're both action guys, so it should be a fun fight. Elder's a southpaw. He's a pressure striker, nice volume. He does load up a lot. Kicks are a big part of his game. Hard body kicks. He likes some spinning attacks. Defensively, he drops his hands. He will sneak in a takedown. And I don't think he's a great offensive wrestler, but if he gets the fight to the ground, he is a submission threat. He got a sub in his last fight. Bad defensive wrestler, though. I mean, go back to the Preston Parsons fight. Parsons took him down with ease. He also mounted him and swept him and made him look really bad in the grappling department. Gage, the thing obviously that stands out to me, what you said, he's only 24 years old. Good striker. He stalks his prey. He fights out of both stances. He's a pocket boxer. He's got nice power. He does load up a lot, and he's very hittable. He stands directly in front of his opponent, which leaves him doesn't have a lot of room to move. He wants to be the one moving forward. Selkid did his best when he was pressuring young backs and then obviously sneaking us on takedowns. He's a decent offensive wrestler. He gets to fight to the ground. He needs to improve his control. He's a weak defensive wrestler, though. He's got a good get-up game, but he's not much of a submission threat. I'm not that high on either. Young taking the fight on short notice doesn't give me a lot of confidence, especially based on the way the fight will go. It should be a pretty high, high output type fight. But I'm going to go with him anyways. I'm going to take the upset simply because I don't think Elder is that good. I definitely don't think he should be a 2-1 favorite. I say Young crashes the pocket. I say he lands some big shots on Elder. I think Elder makes a decision, but I want to go with a very short notice upset pick. I want to give me Young by decision.
Next up at UFC on ESPN 66, and at least as the card is constituted as of the beginning of fight week, the top prelim is a men's flyweight matchup between Matt Schnell and Jimmy Flick. Schnell, the 35-year-old Texan by way of Louisiana or vice versa, is 16-9 with 1 no contest overall. He is 6-7 with 1 no contest since joining the UFC out of season 24 of The Ultimate Fighter and as the outgoing LFC flyweight champ. He's 6-7 with 1 no contest in the UFC. He's 5-5 at flyweight. Having said all that, he is on a 3-fight losing streak, the first of his career, dating back over 2 years at this point. He fought twice last year, getting knocked out by Steve Erceg in March, then coming back in September and getting choked out in the second round by Cody Durden in a bantamweight matchup. He's back, obviously very motivated to snap that losing streak. In order to do so, he will need to get past Flick. Flick, 34-year-old Oklahoman, 17-8 overall. He is 2-3 since joining the UFC out of season 4 of Dana White's Contender Series. He lost his last time out. He fought in June at UFC on ESPN, Perez versus Taira, losing a unanimous decision to Nathan Maness. So he's looking to get back in the win column as well. He is not favored to do so, to say the least, as Schnell is minus 300, Flick plus 240. Matt Schnell's nickname is Danger. I assume that comes from the feeling you get when you bet on him as a favorite. I like Matt Schnell a lot. For a guy that has kind of bounced back and forth between different states on the Gulf Coast, I do see him as a Texan. I like the guy. He's a hell of a lot of fun to watch fight, but he's also been extremely frustrating. He is a guy who is endlessly talented. Like on talent, he appears to be a top 10 flyweight, but he is frequently injured. And when he's in the cage, he has been prone to occasional lapses in fight IQ / durability that have kind of marked his ceiling against the best in the division. Because when you look at his record, I mean, his losses at flyweight are to Alexandre Pantoja, Brandon Royval, Matheus Nicolau, and Steve Erceg. The worst of those, Matheus Nicolau, is a solid top 10 guy, and the other three are solid top 3 guys, at some points over the last couple of years. He's not losing to chumps. And when you put him against anyone outside of that level, he either gets the best of a fun scrap or he just smokes them. The Flick matchup is set up for.
So is Flick a chump or not?
I feel bad saying it, but aside from one immortal highlight, Flick has not really shown himself to be UFC material. You look at his record, he's 17-8, 15 submissions on his record and no knockouts or TKOs. And that can be deceptive. I think the example we used was Hinata Moicano, where at one point, he had no TKO wins on his record and double-digit submissions. And I said that belies the fact that he's actually a very good striker and has good power. Just the way his fights have played out and his own preference have led to him getting his finishes by submission. That's not the case with Jimmy Flick. Flick is much more like a Hani Yahya, Damian Maya type, where His striking is rudimentary, not much power, doesn't throw in combination well, poor footwork, defensively porous. I mean, there's a little of Dustin Hazlett to him as well. And dude, I love Dustin Hazlett. He is in the Hall of fucking Awesome. But if Dustin Hazlett came back to the UFC in 2025 and tried to make his game go the way that it went in 2007, he'd get smoked. Like modern UFC welterweights would wreck the man.
He's still probably better than Jimmy Flick, though.
Yeah. Basically, Flick's best routes to victory involve Schnell making a huge mistake. And the only reason that Schnell is a minus 300 favorite instead of a minus 600 favorite is that people are kind of sneaky aware of the possibility that Schnell might make a huge mistake. If Schnell doesn't make a huge mistake, he is bigger and stronger than Flick. He's a much better striker offensively as well as defensively. I mean, he has defensive lapses, but he knows how to move his head and bring his hands back up. You know, he has a sharp jab and cross. He has good kicks. I think he's a decent offensive wrestler. He's not a great defensive wrestler, but part of that is just that when somebody tries to wrestle him, he turns into a grappler. Like he's just perfectly willing to grab a guillotine and jump to guard if somebody gets in on his hips. Here, he probably could take Flick down and you know, like navigate the waters there. But Schnell's last two losses in the UFC have been by submission. And if he wants to, he can keep this thing on the feet, bust Flick up, and Flick's only prayer of victory will be getting another flying armbar or flying triangle choke like he slapped on Durden. I don't see that coming. I certainly don't see it coming to the tune of wanting to bet on Flick at plus 200 or plus 250 or whatever. This isn't the biggest line on the card, not by a long stretch, but I think this in the cage is going to be one of the more lopsided looking fights in the card. Give me Schnell to just absolutely tool Flick on the feet. If this does go to the ground, it'll be after Flick is too compromised to even pull off a Hail Mary submission. I'll take Schnell by first round TKO here.
I don't even want to talk about Jimmy Flick fights anymore. But I almost feel the same way about Schnell. But you make a really good point. He hasn't lost to bums. What he does good, he's a high volume striker. He's constantly moving forward, stalking his foe. He's a good boxer. He's got fast hands. He uses feints to kind of set up his power shots. He loves a pocket boxing battle where he gets inside, he loads up in big shots. He wants a brawl, though it isn't the smartest due to him not having the durability to take those shots anymore. I mean, it's safe to say his chin might be toast, but he can still crack though. I mean, he hurt Montaran. Even Pantoja, he hurt him. He hurt Tyson Nam. He's one of the hardest hitters in the division. He's a solid grappler. We think of him as a power striker because of his style, but he's got 8 subs on his record. He loves head attacks, Darce Joes, guillotine, stuff like that. He looks for subs off his back, but he was subbed by Brandon Royval. Move it to Flick. I remember when Flick retired briefly, and I think he should have stayed retired because he kind of retired on like a peak too for him. So, he's looked god awful lately. I mean, his unorthodox striker, and a lot of times that's a compliment. That's not the case for Flick. He's one of the worst strikers in the UFC. I've said it before. I imagine Tim Elliott's style of throwing weird angles, but if Elliott had 0 striking skills. I mean, dude's got less boxing than Glass Joe. I mean, he's, obviously I'm exaggerating, but, and he actually showed improvement in his, of all fights, is like recently against Nate Maness, but it's still really bad. He's still slow. He throws a lot of kicks, but they aren't that good either. He doesn't check leg kicks. I go back to Alessandro Costa fight where Costa butchered his legs with kicks. He throws these weird shots to try to close the distance where he wants to get to the clinch. He has entries from the outside, but they aren't good. His wrestling sucks. He's not a power three hips guy. He needs to set up his takedowns better. That's his only hope in this fight. A lot of times he'll just dive in, no setups. If he gets to fight the ground, he's good at scrambling. He's good at, he's a submission artist. He chains subs attempts together well. He can run like a gauntlet of submission attempts. Got a lot of variety in his submission. But he also rushed submission attempts instead of setting him up. He loves the Von Flue choke, which is a little bit of a specialty of his. He also played BJJ instead of working back to his feet. You like Schnell. I think Schnell runs right through Flick. I say he comes out aggressive. I say he catches Flick with a big shot, maybe stops 1 or 2 takedowns, and then finally finishes him off with another big shot. Give me Schnell to get back on the winning ways. Give me Schnell by first round TKO.
The 6-fight main card of UFC Kansas City begins with a middleweight matchup between Ikram Aliskerov and Andre Muniz. Aliskerov, the 32-year-old Dagestani, is 15-2 overall. He's 2-1 since joining the UFC out of season 6 of Dana White's Contender Series. After starting off his Contender Series / UFC run with 3 straight first-round finishes, he ran into Robert Whittaker last June in the headliner of UFC on ABC 6, where he stepped in on relatively short notice, and Whittaker turned him aside in emphatic fashion, knocking him out in under 2 minutes. So Aliskerov, having suffered only his 2nd career defeat, his first in the octagon, looks to bounce back from that against Muniz. The 35-year-old Brazilian is 24-6 overall. He is 6-2 since joining the UFC as a veteran of Dana White's Contender Series Brazil Season 1 and the flagship Contender Series Season 3. He fought on both in back-to-back years back in 2018 and 2019. He's been in the UFC ever since. He started off his UFC run with 5 straight wins, making his way all the way into the middleweight top 10 and the fringes of the title picture before suffering back-to-back losses to Brendan Allen and Paul Craig. He bounced back from those back-to-back losses with a split decision win over Jin Yong Park. That's the good news. The bad news is that the Park win was 16 months ago at this point. It was way back in December of 2023. Muniz has been on the shelf with a variety of health issues for all of last year. He's finally stepping back into the cage here. And the answer to the question I implied to throw out at Keith during the intro, he is the biggest underdog on the card. Aliskerov is minus 650, Muniz plus 470 coming back.
Remember when Muniz was like the next big thing in the division?
He was
not long ago either.
It wasn't that long ago, but doggone it, a couple of bad losses and a year on the shelf apparently have made an impression on the bettors, because Aliskerov is minus 650, and there are some books where he's like minus 750. You have to do a little shopping to even get him at minus 650. Keith, tell me how you see this fight playing out. Are the reports of Andre Muniz's professional demise exaggerated or premature? Is Aliskerov a better fighter than Robert Whittaker made him look? Like, what are we going to learn here?
Yeah, I mean, this fight has been booked a couple of times, and I feel like I've always had it in my notes, and we haven't got to actually preview it. So hopefully it finally goes down this time. I think the answer to those questions is probably somewhere in the middle. Like, is Muniz completely shot done? No. Is Aliskerov better than Robert Whittaker made him look? Yes. Is Aliskerov a negative 700 or whatever you said, 750 favorite over Muniz? No. Is Muniz as bad as a, plus whatever 600 underdog to Aliskerov? No. So I will say, and it's not really going on a limb, that this fight should be close into those betting lines. Muniz, he's a really big heavyweight. He's been against big guys. I'm talking about this past guys like Paul Craig and Brendan Allen and Uriah Hall, and he's actually made those guys look small. He should consider moving up to light heavyweight. He's a plus athlete. He's been super inconsistent. One fight he looks good, the other fight he looks bad. I say on the feet he's a serviceable striker. He outstruck Uriah Hall, but that's also a guy who's super inconsistent himself. He's also has a lot of it has to do with his threat of the ground. It opens up opportunities to land strikes. Defensively, he pillars a lot, which I'm not a fan of. He's got a good kicking game. He's the good volume of kicks. He does use his kicks to help close the distance. Really good at using his forward pressure to push his opponents back to the cage and get it and getting a takedown. A lot of his takedowns come from inside trips or upper body locks, which would be tough against Aliskerov. Though he can shoot from the outside, he's very physically strong. If he grabs his opponent, he can pick him up, slam him to the canvas, gets to fight the ground. He's a really good grappler, especially from the top position. He is a submission threat. Everyone was thinking at one point that he was like the elite of the elite after he broke Jacare's arm. But I mean, Jacare was way past his prime. And then we've kind of gone the other way where he was a front runner. And I think it's somewhere in between. He's got good back takes. If he's put on his back, he can hit a sweep. Issue, and this is another reason why I think he should move up, is he's big, but he's also has gas and it's kind of been the worst for him. He gassed bad against Brendan Allen. He gassed against Paul Craig. Even Park in a win, he gassed. Aliskerov, he's a fairly well-rounded fighter. He's a boxer on the feet, stays tight inside, works behind a jab, throws hard shots down the pipe, nice tight hooks. He has huge power. I mean, he starts Phil Hawes really bad. Biggest issue is his defense. I mean, he lacks head movements. He kept, side-to-side head movement. He kept pulling his head straight back against Rob Whittaker, and that's how Whittaker caught him. You have to worry about his chin after a KO loss like that, too. He throw a lot of teep kicks. He doesn't check leg kicks. He'll throw a flying knee. He does have like a killer instinct when he has his opponent hurt. He puts guys out if he does. He's a good wrestler, nice reactionary double, strong top game. He has a submission threat himself. He loves Kimuras because he's so physically strong. He's hard to take down, a very good takedown defense. I always go back to like his Chimaev fight, and that was a really long time ago. And obviously that's elite of the elite, and they were different fighters then. But I mean, he was stuffing takedowns against Chimaev, which was pretty impressive. So I said Muniz is not completely shot, and then he beat Park. But I actually thought Muniz lost to Park. I thought Park should have won that fight. He's been on a skid. I think he should move up to light heavyweight. I don't think this is a good matchup. It got rescheduled a couple times. That was his opportunity to get out of the fight. He probably should have took him. I think Aliskerov is just going to be better than him everywhere. I think if they look to grapple, he ends up being on top in those exchanges, landing shots. I think Muniz is going to completely gas out. I think Aliskerov is going to pound him out then. Give me Aliskerov by third round, ground and pound TKO.
Yeah, you've basically said it all. I'm not going to lengthen this segment by 4 minutes or something by repeating all of my notes that match what you say, because I have kind of underlined maybe Muniz should move up to 205. He wouldn't be undersized at that division at all. And considering that so many of his difficulties recently have obviously been down to gas and durability. Yeah. And moving up from 185 to 205, as our buddy Devin Tejada puts it, the low fight IQ division, he's just going to run into more guys that'll play into his, best skills there. We know what it looks like when Aliskerov loses. Like you pointed out that he lost to Chimaev, but it's not as bad as a 2.5 minute KO loss might seem. Like, I mean, that was Chimaev in the middle of, that might have been like Chimaev's like longest fight within a year of that. Either way, I mean, he was killing everyone else in like 40 seconds.
Yeah, 2.5 minutes is longer than 99% of his opponents.
Yeah, like I think he finished his first 3 UFC fights in less time than that, like combined. And then Whittaker, and you know what?
Yeah, super.
Even in June of 2024, outstriking Robert Whittaker is just not a thing that anybody but about 3 middleweights on the planet can even dream of doing. Like Whittaker made Aliskerov look basic and amateurish on the feet. He made his head movement look bad, made him look slow. Yeah, Robert Whittaker is a brilliant striker. Muniz, to win this fight would need it to go to the ground, and he'd need it to go to the ground preferably within the first 6 or 7 minutes, and preferably not because he got knocked down by Aliskerov. When I look at it that way, I'm like, okay, it makes sense why Aliskerov is such a huge favorite here. Like, I'm not sold on Aliskerov as a future champ or title contender again yet, but I do think this is a dreadful style matchup for Muniz. Give me Aliskerov by second round TKO, and I think Muniz will be fading by then pretty badly. Next up on the UFC on ESPN 66 main card is a welterweight clash between Randy Brown and Nicolas Dalby. Brown, the 34-year-old Jamaican, is 19-6 overall. He's 13-6 in the UFC. He's coming in off a loss. He fought most recently at UFC 310 back in December, where he dropped a split decision to Bryan Battle. Prior to that, he'd been on a 3-fight win streak over Wellington Turman, Muslim Salikov, and Eliseo Capoeira. So he'll look to start up another win streak here, certify himself a rankable contender in this division against Dalby. The 40-year-old from Denmark is 23-5-1 with 2 no contests overall. He is 7-4-1 with 1 no contest in the UFC across 2 separate stints with the promotion. He is 6-2 this time. He joined the UFC a decade ago as a standout from Cage Warriors. He was released by the UFC, went back and wrecked shop in Cage Warriors again, including a no contest in the most disgustingly bloody fight in MMA history against Ross Houston. Since coming back off of that fight, he is 6-2. He's coming in off of a loss as well. He fought at the Whitaker versus Aliskerov card last June, where he dropped a split decision to Rinat Fakhretdinov. Prior to that, he'd been on a 4-fight win streak. Really, as far as I'm concerned, one of the feel-good stories of the last couple of years in MMA. He was beating good fighters, including people like, Muslim Salikov, Gabriel Bonfim, and just, it was great to see him back. He's 40. He needs to bounce back from a loss here. He is not favored to do so, because Brown is minus 240, Dalby plus 190. There was a time not that long ago, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right when Dalby was in the middle of his kind of comeback win streak in the UFC, where I would have said this had huge upset potential all over it, because Brown was still a little bit wild and prone to underachieving, and Dalby just such an obvious classic overachiever. But you know what? That gap has narrowed a bit. I don't think Randy Brown is really an underachiever anymore. Like, if you look back at his early UFC run, he had some fantastic offensive highlights. He also found weird ways to lose to fighters. Like, Bilal Muhammad is just always going to be a terrible matchup for a guy whose legs are longer than I am tall, but against
anybody really.
Yeah, like anybody, but especially if you look like the takedown dummy from Bilal's dreams, you're going to have a rough night against him. But against Nico Price and Vicente Luque, that was basically for supremacy in that Shark Tank of action welterweights. And they were both fantastically fun fights, and Brown found a way to lose. And against Nico Price, it was one of the weirdest finishes in UFC history. Those were 5 years ago. Since losing to Vicente Luque, again, almost 5 years ago, he's lost to Jack Della Maddalena, who is a title challenger coming up, and Bryan Battle, who has all the appearances of a future title contender at 170. Brown doesn't lose to bad fighters anymore, and he beats pretty good ones pretty badly. Like Muslim Salikov and Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos, they're both on the back end of their career, but they're both solid kind of 11 through 20 type welterweights, and Brown handled them both. Like he's really developed a lot. Dalby is still the same guy, he has been since he's been back. He's a little older. And when I call him an overachiever, it's not to denigrate his skills, because he's not a bad athlete and he is skilled. It's just that on top of being a pretty strong, pretty athletic, pretty skilled guy, he just He has incredible cardio, and he has the approach to fighting that weaponizes his cardio. Like, if you can't get Nicolas Dalby out of there, he's going to make life miserable for you, and you're going to have to kind of walk through fire to get your hand raised at the end. Because of that, I still see the upset potential here. I'm just, again, if these guys had fought in, say, like 2022, Brown still probably would have been a 2-1 favorite, but I would have been like, I've got Dalby in the upset, and this is my lock upset of the night. Like, bet the house, bet the kid's college education on it. And if Brown destroyed Dalby, I'd be like, well, community colleges are still really good. Like tell your kid to get a job. And yeah. Anyway, I still got Dalby in this one. All he really needs to do is win 2 rounds. If Dalby is still standing in the 3rd round, I think he wins the 3rd round. He's going to be fresher than Brown. Dalby is a come forward guy. Brown doesn't especially like that. And by the time the 3rd round comes around, I think Dalby's going to have taken Brown down a few times. And even if he hasn't made a ton of hay on the ground, that's going to have the effect of kind of making Brown a little more tired, making him a little less likely to uncork his kicking arsenal. I rarely call for split decisions, but this is going to be one of those fights where I think the only clear round is Dalby winning round 3. The first 2 rounds will be super close, super fun. Give me Dalby to get 2 of those or one of those rounds on 2 of the judges' scorecards and win a split decision here over Randy Brown in what is still a pretty solid upset. One more last hurrah for the 40-year-old Nicolas Dalby.
I love it. I love it. This is such a fun fight. This is definitely one of the fights that, boosts the score when I think of this card. 2 guys I like. Randy Brown, I mean, he's really grown. I mean, I always thought he was like a decent mid-card kind of guy. And now he's like, to me, that bottom top 15, really tough out for any kind of guy. He's a long and lengthy fighter. He's an out striker where he uses his footwork to kind of keep his range. He uses his feints well to set up his shots. He's got nice boxing, quick hands, nice jab. He uses his jab kind of keep his distance. He sets up his power shots well based on those feints in that distance. He also feints with his hips too, which is smart because he has a big kicking game. It kind of keeps him away from and out of range. He likes teep kicks. He has those long legs. So he easily flicks out kicks to the head. He easily flicks out kicks to the calf. But because of it, he's also open to calf kicks. He has huge targets. I go back to like the Fizete Luque fight where he beat up his legs with kicks. If his opponent gets inside on him, what I love about Brown, I've talked about this before about him, is he's the one who initiates the clinch, which puts him on the offense side of the defense when they get inside. He uses his legs well inside in there. He's a solid wrestler, too. He's a really underrated wrestler. He's got some good bylock takedowns. He also has that almost like Michael Chiesa style where he uses his long arms to grab a leg, pull him out. Good top game. He has 4 submission wins. His defense wrestling has greatly improved over the years, too. I mean, this is something that used to be a weakness of his. And he's got a lot of heart. Like, I go back to the Zaleski Dos Santos fight where he was getting crushed by a rear naked choke on his jawline, and he didn't tap. Dalby, I mean, dude, we love Dalby. I mean, this dude is just a tough SOB. He's definitely like a Shillan Duffy favorite. Very mentally strong guy. You can beat him up the whole time, and he's not going to wilter or break. He beats guys with volume. He steps on the gas and he forces his opponent to kind of fight off their back foot the majority of the fight, especially as the fight goes deeper on. He never stops working, makes every position uncomfortable. He's a builder that gets stronger and stronger. But the problem is he's 40 years old. And I always have to ask myself, how long can he last at that? Like, will suddenly the cardio just fade overnight? And then if that happened, his entire game would crumble and be pulling out pulling the foundation out on a house. No, he does have skill. He's a solid striker. He can fight out of both stances, a lot of variety in striking. He has some power. He will overextend at times, which leaves him to be countered. He throws a lot of kicks. He loves teep kicks. He loves that Holly Holmes side kick. Sometimes that's just used to push his opponent back on their back foot. he completely ignores defense, though. He lacks head movement. He's one of these guys. He's willing to eat a shot to land on his own. He trusts his chin a lot. He's a solid offensive wrestler, but he's a weak defensive wrestler. I mean, Claudio Silva, Renat Fakhreddinov, they both took him down a lot of times in their fight. Some of that has why they were able to take him down is he's got a good get-up game. He gets back up to the feet, which gives him the opportunity to take him down again. He has 4 submission wins. He showed he's tough to submit to when he avoided all the submission attacks from Claudio Silva and Gabriel Bonfim, to submission artists. And you mentioned he has the cardio. He's got. It's not just that he has cardio. He's a cardio to wrestle for 15 minutes, which is super impressive. Which, if he can get, he doesn't have to be winning early. He just has to get Brown to work. I'm just gonna disagree though. I'm all over Brown here. I like Dalby. He's super tough, but skill-wise, Brown to me is still like head and shoulders above him. Dalby's whole game is the ability to tire someone down. I don't think he'll be able to do that against Brown. I think he's going to have, especially early. I think he's not going to be able to get. I think he'll get to the later rounds. I don't think he's going to be able to get Brown to work as hard as he will, because I think he's going to struggle to get by the distance and close it. I think Brown's going to land strikes. He's going to clinch when they're inside, beat him up in there. He might take the fight to the ground, be on top, having Dalby work back into his feet. Give me Brown by decision.
Next up on the UFC Kansas City main card is a middleweight clash between Michel Pereira and Magomedov. Pereira, the 31-year-old Brazilian, is 31-12 with 2 no contests overall. He is 9-3 in the UFC. He is 3-1 since moving up from welterweight to middleweight. He is coming off a loss. He headlined UFC Fight Night 245 last October against Anthony Hernandez. He succumbed to ground and pound in the 5th round, putting a close to Sherdog's beatdown of the year for 2024. Prior to that, he had been on an 8-fight win streak that saw him rise from a hilarious and exciting curiosity to a fringe title contender. Obviously, after a demoralizing loss, he needs to rebuild, restart. The onus is on him to prove that the Hernandez fight was a bad night at the office and that he is, in fact, a potential contender in this division. In order to prove any of those things, he will have to get past Magomedov. 34-year-old Russian fighting out of Germany is 27-6-1 overall. He's 3-2 since joining the UFC as a former standout from the first season of Professional Fighters League. He is on a 2-fight win streak comprising both of his cage appearances of last year. He took a unanimous decision over Warley Alves last May at UFC Fight Night Barboza versus Murphy, then came back in October at UFC 308 and tapped out Bruno Ferreira in the 3rd round. So he is looking to pick up his 3rd win in a row and prove that he is a potential contender in this division. He is not favored to do so, but the line is pretty close as Pereira is -140, Magomedov +110. Keith, we've talked about a number of fighters on this card that are coming into UFC Kansas City off of bad performances or bad losses in their last fight, and it's on them to prove that that was an aberration and they are, in fact, the fighter they were before. In nobody's case is it so true as in the case of Michel Pereira. Like, I remember very well us previewing this fight because we loved both guys so much. And I believe we kind of agreed that the dynamic of the fight was Pereira is going to be able to make hay early if he does it all. And Hernandez, being Hernandez, will probably take over late with his wrestling and grappling because that's what he does.
Yeah.
Instead, Hernandez just absolutely whooped Pereira from pillar to post. I mean, by the end of it, the real surprise was that it made it to the 5th round.
Pereira did pretty good very early, but it wasn't very long.
Right. Okay. That's fair. The Pereira making hay period instead of the first half of the fight was like the first half of the 1st round instead. But Anthony Hernandez just took over early. And even the ridiculous advantage in raw athleticism that Pereira figured to have wasn't as stark as maybe their highlight reels would have led us to believe. Just, I feel as though there is a lot riding on Michel Pereira right now. Like, what, he's still just 31 years old. So at middleweight, theoretically, he could have another 5 or 6 years to kind of ply his trade at least the kind of level he is right now. But I think his future as a title contender or not is basically on the line in this fight. Like he, and if you're watching this, you may remember when he came to the UFC, he had the most ridiculous regional highlight reel in modern MMA history. Like, the guy makes Johnny Walker look tame. Like, the guy was throwing, Showtime kicks the way most fighters throw a jab. It was just absolutely insane. He was, doing cartwheel guard passes and atomic butt drops on people in like regional title fights. What we learned was, once he kind of settled down from that, and once he moved up to middleweight, he actually had a decent gas tank. He was capable of just winning a straightforward kickboxing match against other good strikers. Like, beating people like Chaos Williams, Nico Price, Andre Fialho without any of the flying stuff, just flat out beat them. And it turned out that, oh, by the way, he's a very, very good wrestler. And his wrestling a little bit like his striking. It's not so much, just shooting a low single and switching to a double, but more like taking someone's back standing and launching him with a suplex. It was like highlight reel wrestling. All that came to a screeching halt against Hernandez. I'm going to cautiously call that a mix of a bad night at the office for Pereira and just Hernandez leveling up yet one more time. Like, I'm higher on Hernandez than I was before, and he's been one of our dudes for a couple of years now. Magomedov is coming the other way. Like, in 2018, Magomedov, he wasn't the top guy, but he would have been in like the top 10 or 12 fighters outside the UFC that I was most excited to see in the UFC. I thought he was one of the best middleweights in the PFL that first season. Just that season, Lewis Taylor was kind of a man of destiny. I think Lewis Taylor would have knocked almost anybody out in about 30 seconds the night that he knocked out Magomedov. But Magomedov didn't come straight to the UFC. He missed like a year or two with a mixture of injuries and weird visa issues. And then by the time he got to the UFC, the magic kind of seemed to be gone. In hindsight, losing to Sean Strickland and Caio Borralho did not mean that the magic was gone. It just meant that he was running into the wrong people. The plus athleticism that I saw in Magomedov does seem to have evaporated, but he's still a big, long-limbed middleweight who doesn't have any real stylistic weaknesses. Like, he's a pretty good striker, he's a pretty good wrestler, he's a pretty good grappler, and in his last couple fights, he beat Warley Alves, who's a long-time kind of mid-card guy, and then beat Bruno Ferreira, who seemed to be a solid fringe contender on his way up. I think this is a sneaky tough test for Pereira, but Pereira he's the far more dangerous fighter. Like, if this turns on one moment of big offense, we know who it's going to come from. But Pereira has turned into a pretty smart fighter too. Like, I don't think it's just it would just be an easy thing for Magomedov to grind out a ho-hum 3-round decision over Pereira just by slowing things down on the feet, clinching a lot, trying a few takedowns. I don't think that Magomedov approach is going to work on Pereira either. Give me Pereira to win a decision here in a fight that is not quite as exciting as the average Pereira fight, but more exciting than the average Magomedov fight. Like, I think it'll turn into more of a Michel Pereira fight than an Abus Magomedov fight. Maybe that's just wishful thinking on my part, because I don't want to be bored 11 fights into a 14 fight card. But give me Pereira to bounce back at least to the point that he'll get, a ranked fighter in his next fight after this. Michel Pereira gets back on track by decision.
Oh, this fight, man. I'm glad it's just, you agree that this is just a weird matchup.
Oh, yeah.
And Pereira definitely has his back against the wall. He cannot afford to lose this fight, as you mentioned. I'm not completely jumping off the Michel Pereira bandwagon. It's not. It's to me, it's not that he lost. It's just Anthony Hernandez continues to win. He's just so freaking good. Pereira, he's a really huge guy. I mean, I said it before, he looks like a light heavyweight, which is super crazy because he used to be a welterweight. He has those long arms. He might be the greatest athlete in UFC history. I mean, the dude is basically a gymnast that also knows how to punch and kick. I mean, he's wicked explosive. He's got fast hands. He marches down his foe. He's good at cutting the cage off. He sets up shots well with feints. He's got big power. He's good at picking up his opponent's range from distance. He works the body well. He uses like flying knees. I've said this before. He uses it both offensively and defensively, where he uses it to kind of close the distance, but also to stop his opponent's attacks. Hard stepping knees, which I love. Incredible kicking game. He goes those oblique kicks. He's got teep kicks. He kicks the body hard. He destroyed Michel. Michel Olasejak with Michael Olasejak with a body kick. He's an underrated wrestler. He out wrestled Chaos Williams, which is a win that has kind of aged well. He isn't a submission threat, but he did catch Io Pereira in this like incredible guillotine. He also almost caught Anthony Hernandez in a guillotine, which would have been incredible. His cardio has come a long way. I mean, his cardio was kind of a strength against Santiago Ponzinibbio. He gassed against Anthony Hernandez, but again, I credit Hernandez more than Pereira. Dropping his stock, and a lot of that why his cardio.
If there is a hell for evil people after they die, it may just be round 5 against Anthony Hernandez forever.
Yeah, be on the ground with Anthony Hernandez on top of you. Yeah, smothering you. That's a good point. A lot of the reason why Pereira's cardio has gotten better, as you pointed out, is he just stopped all that nonsense. Now that stuff was fun, and I'll say that I don't want him to stop that because I don't need another good fighter, but having crazy things that I don't see in the cage to me is more fun. But he did do a backflip when he was fighting Pereira in a really quick fight, which was fun. And then obviously moving up to middleweight has helped his cardio. Magomedov, he's a decent athlete. He's long and lengthy. He switches back and forth between orthodox and southpaw. He has fairly quick hands. Though his output has been low at times. He threw way too many single strikes against Cuamba in a fight that he was more skilled than the guy. He has plus power. He likes to lead with his rare hand, which is something you don't see a lot. He attacks with combinations. He switches stances in mid-combo, which I like. He kept headhunting against Bahayo, which was concerning. He has a big kicking game. He's got some quick high kicks. Obviously, his front kick to Dustin Stillfoot is the highlight of his career. Nice push kicks, nice calf kicks. He will throw naked leg kicks, which is concerning. He's a plus wrestler, and he wrestles a lot. He likes to get in close, and he does like shucks and duck hunters, which is kind of fun to see. But you throw in the last name Magomedov, people will have overconfidence in your grappling. I mean, again, he can get the fight to the ground, but he's not elite. Now, he's got better. I think he's more of a grappler. He's got a pretty decent top game. He's got some good back takes. He has submission threat. I've said this before, though. I think he's a front runner. He gassed against Sean Strickland. He's folded a bunch of fights where he starts out early and looks competitive, and as it gets hard, he finds ways to check out. You took Pereira, and you said it won't be as fun of a fight for Pereira, but it'd be better than Magomedov fight. We have the same winner, but we see the fight much differently. I think Pereira runs right through him. I think he's too fast for him. I think he lands big punches. I think he lands big kicks. I
I
think
hope you're right.
yeah, I think he finishes with big pillow, and I think Pereira knocks him out in the very first round. I mean, I understand Pereira's stock dropping after losing to Hernandez, but Hernandez is the man. I was when you mentioned the line, I was surprised by this. I thought Pereira was going to be like a negative 400 favorite. I think this is the steal of the night. Dude, I'm betting the house on this one. Lock this one. This is my lock of the night. Give me Pereira by knockout. I'm not locking Pereira by knockout, but I'm saying lock it. Bet your money on Pereira.
Third from the top on the UFC Kansas City main card is a featherweight matchup between Giga Chikadze and Kansas City's own David Onama. Chikadze, the 36-year-old Georgian by way of Southern California, is 15-4 overall. He's 8-2 since joining the UFC as a veteran of season 2 of Dana White's Contender Series. He fought on the Contender Series, actually lost to Austin Springer, had to go win a couple more fights in Gladiator Challenge, then got signed and proceeded to win his first 7 fights in the UFC, minting himself a fringe contender and an exciting kind of sensational kickboxer. He has now lost 2 of his last 4 against Calvin Kattar and Arnold Allen. The most recent of those, the Allen fight, was his only cage appearance of last year. It was at UFC 304 last July. So he's looking to bounce back from that loss. He's looking to reaffirm himself as a top 10 featherweight. In order to do those things, he will have to get past Onama. Onama, 30-year-old Missouri native, now training out of Denver, is 13-2 overall. He is 5-2 in the UFC. He's 5-1 at featherweight. He made a short notice debut back in 2021. It was 2 weeks from a local fight in Kansas City. It was up a weight class against Mason Jones. And nonetheless, Onama acquitted himself well enough that he was an obvious asset to the promotion. He moved down to 145 after that. And as I say, he is 5-1 since then, with the lone loss coming back in 2022 in a close fight against Nate Landwehr. He's on a 3-fight winning streak right now, including both of his cage appearances of last year. That would be decision wins over Jonathan Pierce in April and Roberto Romero in November. So he's looking to make it 4 in a row, certify himself a rising contender in this division. He is moderately favored to do so. Onama is minus 180, Chikadze plus 150. Keith, I'll flip this to you first, but who was the real Giga Chikadze? Tell us that, and tell us how you think this fight plays out on Saturday.
Yeah, who'd you say what the favorite was?
It is Onama. He's minus 180, Chikadze plus 150.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know what the Chikadze is. That's the thing. What do you? He's a very good kickboxer. There's no doubt about that. That's what he's known for, his striking. Good footwork. He's constantly moving, constantly flowing back and forth between orthodox and southpaw. Very good striker, very relaxed and poised. Go back to like the Arnold Allen fight. He hated the pressure on Arnold. He wants space to work. He doesn't like being crowded like Allen was doing to him. He's got quick hands. He's accurate, nice power in both of his hands. His overhand right is to watch out for. He also what I like about it is he throws punches from different angles. I described before, he's almost like a pitcher throwing fastball and a changeup, something that, so it's kind of hard to like pick up his tells and his reads and his speeds, because he adjusts his speeds well. 1 minute he's whipping a punch at you, next minute he's jabbing you. He's got a big kicking game. But the worry I have about him is the years of abuse he's taken in both kickboxing and now MMA. I mean, I go back to the Calvin Kattar fight. Calvin Kattar completely changed him. And he got tagged early, never recovered. And then he started getting tagged the rest of the way. And I wonder how much at his age, he's up there in age, how much is that still an issue? Anna Allen gave a beating. He never really wrestles. He's not going to look for takedowns. His takedown defense is still pretty poor. Calvin Kattar took him down for Pete's sake. Calvin Kattar is a terrible wrestler. He's also gassed out in the past. So there's a lot of, while his striking is like uber dangerous, there's still like glaring holes in his game. And as his age, it's just fairly confident like those aren't going to be fixed and they're going to become worse. Onama, he's a good striker. He can fight at both stances, nice output on the feet, quick hands. He's explosive, not a lot of tells. Good variety in his attacks. He will throw big power shots, though it will leave him out of position at times as he kind of overthrows his punches. I like that he works the body. It's a big part of his game. He also does a lot of step-in knees, which I love. He will drop his hands, which will be super dangerous against a striker like Chikadze. And he'll get in the pocket and invite a brawl. Again, concerning. He has nice calf kicks, though he'll throw him naked. He's a solid grappler, good wrestler. Let's just say solid wrestler. He'll use his long arms to kind of snatch a leg. He needs to improve his takedown defense, though. I go back to like the Mason Jones fight with Jones done 8 times. But he has 4 submission wins. He subbed Garrett Armfield. He did gas against Nate Landwehr in the past, but again, that's what Landwehr does to people. He also took a beating and kept coming, showed a lot of heart. And his cardio has looked much better in other fights other than Landwehr. So I just think I kind of credit that to Landwehr. Chikadze, I still think might have the higher ceiling. If you told me, someone could make a run in the next 2 years and be a top 10 guy in the division, I would definitely lead towards Chikadze. He's faced some higher competition. He's still really fast. I do think Onama is an intelligent fighter. I think he'll probably put himself in the best avenue to secure victory for himself. And it's pretty obvious that avenue is close distance and wrestle. And he isn't too bad at it. So the reason why I asked who was a favorite, I thought Onama was going to be the underdog. I thought I was going to be trendy and take an upset. Just because it's a step up competition for him. I think he takes Chikadze down. I think he wrestles him for a large period of time, and I think he's going to win a decision because of it. Give me Onama by decision.
Yeah, I see it very similarly to you because, and I agree. It comes down to Onama's game plan, like what he and Mark Montoya lay out and how closely Onama follows it. Because if Onama obliges Chikadze with a striking battle, Onama might be about the highest ranked guy that Chikadze could comfortably get a win over. But yeah, Onama's a decent wrestler. I have to imagine they know where their best route to win this fight lies. So yeah, give me Onama to probably win 2 rounds out of 3 with some well-timed takedowns, and Onama going for takedowns will probably blunt some of what Chikadze wants to do on the feet as well. So yeah, it won't be the wild distance striking battle between 2 pretty high level kickboxers that we might have gotten, but it'll be it'll be an approach that favors Onama over Chikadze strongly. Give me Onama by decision here as well. Oh, just in the interest of fact checking, Onama has actually fought twice at lightweight. His last fight against Roberto Romero was at lightweight as well. It was changed from featherweight to lightweight like during fight week, and it was pretty obviously because of Romero, not because of Onama. So I never clocked that as Onama missing weight or wanting to fight at 155. But yeah, in the interest of accuracy, his last fight was at 155 as well. That brings us to the co-main event of UFC on ESPN 66, a light heavyweight matchup between Anthony Smith and Zhang Mingyang, which the veteran Smith has openly stated will be his retirement fight. Smith, the 36-year-old Nebraska native by way of Colorado, is 38-21 overall. He is 18-11 across 2 separate stints in the UFC, having also spent significant time in Strikeforce and Bellator. He is one of the more well-traveled fighters in recent memory in the UFC. And his latest UFC run saw him exceed all expectations, moving up from kind of a middle of the road welterweight into an actual light heavyweight title contender and then light heavyweight title challenger. He challenged John Jones for the title all the way back in 2019. That did not go his way, but he's better than 500 since then, while fighting pretty much the best the division has to offer, fight in and fight out. Having said that, at 36, things do appear to be in decline. He is on a 2-fight losing streak, those being a decision loss to Roman Dolidze last June at UFC 303, and then a second-round TKO at the hands and elbows of the resurgent Dominic Reyes at UFC 310 last December. Smith, having already stated that this is his final fight, having presumably continued employment at the UFC desk waiting for him, would certainly love to go out on a high note. In order to do so, he will have to get past Zhang. The 26-year-old from China is 18-6 overall. He's 3-0 in the UFC. He fought most recently back in November, knocking out Ozzy Diaz in the first round with a brutal standing elbow and some follow-up punches. He is on an overall, I think, 10 or 11 fight win streak, which he will look to extend by one more at the expense of Lionheart. He is, as I mentioned during the intro, the second biggest favorite on the card. Zhang is minus 500, Smith plus 380. I think this line is way out of whack.
Okay.
If there's, here's the thing, like, I'm not going to pretend that the wheels aren't falling off for Anthony Smith. Like, all credit to Smith that he is calling it right now and stepping away while he is still generally competitive with top 15 fighters every time out. He's not Sam Alvey, like, going winless in his last 9 fights in the UFC and then going over to karate combat or bare knuckle boxing. Like, Anthony Smith is going to fight one more time, put his tie back on, and walk over to the desk and move on to the next chapter. Like, all respect to him. So I'm not going to pretend that he is anywhere near his prime physically. I think this line is way out of whack because I'm not sure that Zhang Mingyang is actually that good. Like,
I agree.
He's on a 11 fight win streak, including his first 3 fights in the UFC. But his first 3 fights in the UFC. Oh, and by the way, his 11 fight win streak is all first round finishes. The 3 people he's fought in the UFC, George Tokos and Ozzy Diaz, might literally be like the 2 lowest level people in the division at the time he fought them. And Brendan Ribeiro, the jury is kind of still out on him. Even the 2025 version of Anthony Smith is such a step up from the people Zhang has been beating in the UFC and then in like Wu Lin Feng before then. Like, he's a minus 500 favorite, and we literally have no idea what it looks like if he has to fight past 4 minutes. And while, you know, Anthony Smith has hit hard times recently, the best fighters in the world have not put Anthony Smith away in the first round. Like, if it was easy to do, somebody like Khalil Roundtree or Johnny Walker or even Dominic Reyes would have done it. Those guys are huge hitters who have been fighting top level competition. Like, I in terms of, you'll give a better breakdown of Smith's skills than I will, you know, so I'll just give my high points here. Smith, for a guy that is a longtime former welterweight, is not that undersized as a light heavyweight. Like, he doesn't have the broadest frame, but he is a 6'4" guy with long arms and legs. Like, the fights he's lost at light heavyweight have not been because he was too small. Legendary durability that has definitely started to show some cracks, but offensively, I mean, over half of his career wins are by knockout or TKO, and that is remains so even in the UFC. And he's not a one-shot knockout artist. He is a death by 1,000 cuts type guy. When he really gets flowing, he's got just nasty Muay Thai in close quarters where he will move seamlessly from punches to elbows and knees on the inside. When he's not facing a complete bull like, John Jones, Roman Dolidze, he is a strong presence in the clinch. He's not a good offensive wrestler, and he's not a good defensive wrestler, but he is a very good grappler. And several times during his most recent UFC run, he has turned away younger, more touted prospects just by embarrassing them on the ground. And a lot of times they chose to take it there and learn the error of their ways. Like I'll always go back to the Devin Clark fight for that, because, Clark, wrestler, big, strong guy, took Smith down, and Smith just triangled him instantly. Because Smith has said that this is his final fight, like, I don't normally bring, I normally leave intangibles kind of in the background where they belong. I think the more skilled, more, physically well-conditioned fighter wins 90% of the time. But between there being so many unknowns about Zhang Mingyang and being so familiar with Smith's game, both the high points and the low points, I'm calling the upset here. Like, Zhang's wins, and again, he's on something like 11 first-round knockouts in a row. It's not been with stuff that's gonna work on Anthony Smith. Like, he swarms forward with like really basic combinations. He could catch Smith. Smith is slowing. His durability is going, but I think Smith is more defensively sound and has better footwork than Osman Diaz or Brendan Ribeiro. Like, he's may not be as quick as them anymore, but I think he's a fundamentally better defensive striker. And again, we have no idea what Zhang is going to look like in a second round. The last time he went to a second round, he lost that fight, and it was like 7 years ago or something. I think we start to see some vintage Anthony Smith in the second round of this fight, where maybe Zhang is starting to flag a little bit. Smith is the one who starts to dictate the distance. Smith is still dangerous in the clinch, again, when he's not fighting someone who's just way stronger and in way stronger than him, and a good clinch fighter. Like, when he's not fighting like a Roman Dolidze type, like, he's still dangerous in the clinch. While Smith is not a great offensive wrestler, I think Zhang may start to get tired. I think Smith starts to hurt him on the feet, finds a way to get this to the ground, and from there, I think it's probably pretty academic. Give me Anthony Smith by third round submission here, and it'll be a massive upset. And if it plays out like I think it will, it's going to be a huge come crashing back to earth for Zhang that I'm sure the UFC would love to have a young, finisher contender from China, but I don't think it happens on Saturday. Give me Anthony Smith to go out in style, give an emotional retirement speech that has us all in tears, at least me, and swing off into the sunset and the UFC table with his hand raised.
Wow, look at you, man. Way to go, man. I'll do this, dude. I never do this, but I'm not taking Smith. But dude, I hope you're right. I really do. I mean, Smith seems like such a good dude. Just like guy that you just love to see get his last victory in front of a crowd, that'd be freaking awesome. He's always been a really bad athlete, but it's his athleticism is completely gone now. I mean, I really believe he's shot, and he's too tough for his own good. He wins because he beats guys with volume, but even if he does this, he he wants to try to beat him guys with volume. He can't go balls to the wall anymore. He has more of a controlled pace, and it's getting worse each fight. He's still fairly technical. He's got some tight boxing. But, Pope Francis has better hand speed right now than Anthony Smith has. This too soon. No, I'm not Catholic, whatever. He's got tons of variety in his attacks. He's a point fighter with not much power anymore. He throws a lot of kicks. He likes to end combinations with kicks. He's got some fairly good calf kicks. Some teep kicks are a big part of his game. Defense is a big problem right now. He doesn't avoid shots well. He never really did. And the dude's been in like so many wars. The guy's like easy company from Band of Brothers. Like, give the guy a break, And he's got to eat shots. He's got to get his legs kicked. Roman Dolidze beat up his legs. Alexander Rakic beat up his legs. He will try to wrestle, but he was never really good at wrestling. He's definitely more of a BJJ practitioner than a wrestler. He is a submission threat. I think that's his best avenue of victory. He's got 16 subs on his record. He caught Victor Petrino recently in a guillotine. It would have been good if that was his last hurrah. He should have retired on the spot then. Another thing is he's built his game around cardio, and he gassed against Roman Dolidze, which is not good. Zhang's only 26 years old, which is great for a light heavyweight. And he has a lot of experience for a guy who's only 26. I'd say he's a solid striker. He does stand directly in front of his opponent, a very Muay Thai style. Nice boxing, especially in the pocket. He attacks with combination. He's got a good straight right, good left hook. He attacks the body, which I like. He has serious power. He got 10 straight first round finishes. You got to give him that. He throws a lot of kicks, but they're naked. He has some defensive issues. Biggest thing, he doesn't move his head. He also isn't a wrestler. He'll sneak in a takedown, but like I said, he's not a great wrestler. But he's a submission threat. He's got 6 subs on his record. He's hard to take down, and he's even harder to hold down. He's a big guy. I love Anthony Smith. The biggest thing that stands out to me of Anthony Smith is this was like a career journeyman that somehow came fairly late in his career to the UFC. He had tons of fights on his record when he came to the UFC. He was the guy when you think, I don't know, 2000, when was it? 2012, 2010, something like that. You thought journeyman, regional guy. When he got his bump up to the UFC, he's like, oh, that's cool. Like, guy gets, he gets to say.
But when you come to the UFC off of splitting a pair of 175 pounds fights with Josh Neer in 2012, nobody pictures you fighting John Jones.
No, and exactly.
4 years later,
and that's what he did. He worked his way from being this journeyman guy to a single win away from UFC title. And
if he'd been a dick, he might have been champ.
Exactly. He could have had that for the rest of his career. And it's like, tell your grandchildren I was UFC champion. Don't watch the fight. But I was UFC champion.
Yeah, don't watch the fight. But
I just thought he was going to be a guy that told people that he once fought in the UFC. Instead, he's going to work for the UFC, afterwards. The problem is MMA careers end in tragedy, and I just don't see this being any different. I think Zhang's going to destroy him. And I'm with you. I'm not that high on Zhang yet. Or at least I would say I think he's good. Don't get me wrong. I think he's good. I don't think he's like a top 5 guy. This is like throwing a guy right to the walls. I do think this is a range that Smith could actually win. I don't think your pick is crazy. I think Smith is going to break the streak of Zhang. I think he's not going to reach. He's not going to get knocked on the first round, but I think he's going to take ungodly punishment. We're just saying, come on, Anthony, just let it go. And to me, when a guy says he's not that good anymore, when he recognizes he's not that good, that's when it's scary. And he's mentioned that already. So I say Zhang puts him out. Zhang by second round TKO.
With that, we come to the main event of UFC on ESPN 66, a welterweight matchup between Ian Garry and Carlos Prates. Garry, the 27-year-old Irishman, is 15-1 overall. He is 8-1 since joining the UFC as the outgoing Cage Warriors welterweight champ. That's the good news. The bad news is that the one loss is in his most recent appearance. He fought at UFC 310 back in December, dropping a unanimous decision to Shavkat Rakhmonov. He will look to bounce back from that, start up a new win streak, certify himself still a rising star and contender in the octagon against Prates. 31-year-old Brazilian is 21-6 overall. He's 4-0 since joining the UFC out of season 7 of Dana White's Contender Series. He fought 4 times last year, making himself arguably the UFC's biggest breakout star, with knockouts of Trevin Giles, Charlie Radke, Li Jingliang, and Neil Magny. The most recent of those, the Magny fight, was in the headliner of UFC Fight Night 247 in November, and he achieved what relatively few fighters have done, putting Magny away emphatically in the first round. So fresh off a breakout year, he wants to keep the good vibes going. Well, you know what? I will quiz you. Keith, the favorite is -130. The underdog +110. Very close line. Who's the favorite?
So, Ben, we've been doing this show enough that your pause, I knew you were going to say that Prates is the underdog. Just because I've heard you say it that way. So Prates is the underdog.
You are correct. Keith and I have yet to meet in person. Looks like we might this summer, if he makes it down to Galveston. Whatever we do when we hang out, it will not be playing poker, because Keith has got all my tells down at this point. Gary's your favorite, -130. Prates +110 on the comeback.
We're gonna be in Texas. We're gonna do some Texas shit. We're gonna do some
all right,
cowboy shit. I love Texas.
Outstanding.
I should be living in Texas.
Yep. I'll move up to New England. All right, we've talked about a few people on this card that are coming in off of losses that leave the burden on them to prove that was a fluke. Like, it was a damaging loss to their perception as a prospect or contender or whatever they are. But most obviously, Ikram Aliskerov, who just got, or no, not even most obviously Michel Pereira, but Pereira and Aliskerov, they've got something to prove. Gary is coming in off of his first career loss, but he was extremely competitive with Shavkat Rakhmonov, somebody that a lot of people still see as a future champ. Like, I don't feel as though Gary's stock slid much, and that's
no.
That's
he proved he could win a title.
Yeah, he proved that he could win a title. Like, if at some point Rakhmonov is champ, there's nothing stopping Gary from challenging him for the title. It's not like Rakhmonov blew him out and everyone's like, we don't need to see that again. And for that reason, he's a slight favorite against Prates, who, I mean, he accomplished the Israel Adesanya Alex Pereira thing, where you drop into the UFC and you go from signing a contract to headlining a card in your first year in the promotion. That's the track that Prates has taken. He's ridden. You can make a good case that he's like the fastest rising star out of the fighting nerds, which is saying a hell of a lot. Like, I'm not saying he absolutely is, but he's in the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a stud.
This fight is absolutely dynamite. Gary probably has more routes to victory. Like, Gary he's a very good striker who uses his long frame very well. Like, he understands the kind of kickboxing match that favors him, and he does try to accomplish that. He is an unconventional takedown artist compared to, American wrestlers. He's much more of a judo influenced guy, but he's a good takedown artist offensively and defensively. And I think his ground game is severely underrated. If it weren't, Shavkat Rakhmonov would have wrecked him, but instead, he basically held his own everywhere there and just came out on the losing end of a decision.
Which, sorry to interrupt you, man, but which is crazy impressive, because remember, Rakhmonov was supposed to be the bad stylistic matchup for Gary. That was like the big narrative. Yeah,
but I'm glad you mentioned that, because what I learned from that fight is there is no such thing as a bad stylistic matchup for Ian Gary. Like, he might be one of the 2 or 3 most well-rounded guys in the entire division. There are fighters who are better than Gary, but there's nobody that just has a laser focus on a glaring weakness that Gary has, because he doesn't really seem to have any. Prates, I mean, it's not like Prates is a one-dimensional fighter, but his best his best skill is his striking. He is, I mean, he's a pretty rangy, good size welterweight himself, blistering fast. I mean, Gary's a very good athlete. You know, he's a much better athlete than you would expect from like this kind of like chalk white Irish dude who, I mean, he's not like ripped like Conor McGregor or anything. Like Gary's a better athlete than he looks like, but Prates is definitely more of a fast twitch freak than Gary is. Hits with like throws fast punches and kicks, throws well in combination, but has like blistering power when he wants it. And thus far, it's been more than enough. Like he's fought people that can wrestle and know that that's what they needed to do to get their chin off the gunnery range against Prates, and none of them have been able to do it yet. Like Trevin Giles is a good wrestler and couldn't make it happen. Neil Magny is a severely underrated wrestler and could never get that untracked. So Gary and his, you know, his handlers might understand that that's what they need to do, but it's an open question whether they'll be able to achieve it. It'll be an interesting thing for Gary because when he strikes, he does, I feel like he does his best work all the way out, but his judo influence takedown game being what it is, if he wants to fight on the ground, he's going to need things all the way in. So he's going to have to kind of walk a tightrope against Prates, and what is lying on either side of the tightrope, if he falls off, is getting his face punched in. If Gary loses this fight, I don't think it's going to look as competitive as the Rachmanov fight. Like if Gary loses this fight, I bet Prates just flatlines him. Having said that, I'm not picking that. Give me Gary to walk that tightrope and get a decision win over Prates where he holds his own well enough in the striking. You know, while Prates is a good sized welterweight, Gary is taller and probably has at least equal reach, maybe a little better, and is a smart and disciplined enough fighter to lean on that and hopefully not leave like his chin hanging out where Prates can find it. And some well-timed clinches with an eye towards the takedown. Yeah, this will be a very close fight. I could see it being a split decision, but give me Gary to win 3 rounds out of 5 on and at least 2 out of the 3 judges' scorecards and get his hand raised at the end. I could see this being a fight that doesn't really hurt either guy's stock too badly. And for one where I don't envision a finish coming, I think it'll be wildly entertaining just because it's 2 such high-level martial artists going at it.
Dude, I freaking love this fight. I think it's one of the best main events that's been made, and I really, I mean, between Gary, who to me just has star quality all over him, whether you love him, you hate him, I think he has a little Paddy in him in the sense where he came obviously from Europe, the UK, Ireland area. The Great Britain connection or whatever. I'm not showing my geography too well, but you know what I'm saying, that island over there. And they obviously have their like huge fan bases from home. But then when they came to America, they got a lot of buzz. But then with the buzz comes a lot of hate. A lot of people hated Paddy, and a lot of people hate Ian Gary. And then they both had moments when they fought. Paddy seemed like to be the Bobby Green fight where he beat Bobby Green and people were like, oh, he's actually really good. And then he doubled down with one of the incredible performances against Michael Chandler. Mm-hmm. Now, Ian Machado Gary lost, but he made the indestructible Rachmanov, who looks like nobody can touch him. He's the next champion. Give him everything he can handle in the matchup that he's not supposed to win. Is a terrible size matchup and was winning huge portions of the fight. And I kind of feel like he's won over fans because of that. So you have that going on. And then you have, as you mentioned, Prates, who's as exciting as that becomes. the fight nerds, which is like the best thing going in MMA right now. It's like I don't know, MMA's Cobra Kai or something. Like the team can't be beat. I love it. The one concern I have with this main event right now is the timing. There's so much going on in sports right now. I mean, obviously baseball is in full effect, but you have the basketball playoffs going on right now. You have the hockey playoffs going on right now. You have the NFL draft this week. For wrestling fan, I know the crossover is not as big as people think it is, but the U.S. Open wrestling's this week. I don't know. I'm sure there's some freaking NASCAR shit or something. I don't know. But obviously high school spring sports. I mean, there's always sports, but you get my point. There's spring is starting to come on. People have yard work and all this. I just feel like it's not going to be on top of people's minds, and it's kind of a shame because it's the best sports activity of the weekend of this main event. So
can I throw something else out?
Sure.
Like another element of the timing that's concerning is that there's enough of a traffic jam forming at the top of the 170-pound division that it'll be hard to say with clarity what's next for the winner.
Yeah, that's a good point. Especially Michel, because already we're losing Rachmaninoff, you're behind him, and then obviously Bilal and Jack Della Manuela was kind of like right guy, right time.
But I mean, that's happening basically 4 weeks from now, or three or 4 weeks from now. So whoever wins that, it's going to be probably late summer, early fall before they're ready to take on probably Rachmanov.
Yeah.
Like, unless Prates pulls out something. So like.
And then you got Sean Brady, who now I'm not saying either one of these guys would want to avoid him because they're as tough as hell, but they might want to because stylistically he's a tough matchup for both of those guys. But we said it already about Michel Gary. I'll start with him. I mean, he's a really big dude, long and lanky, very athletic. He moves super well. He's a good striker. Normally he's a builder and he gets stronger as the fight goes on. And he did against Rachmaninoff, though early on he was very gun shy and it probably cost him the fight as he couldn't he couldn't gas out Rachmaninoff as good as he should have. But on the feet, very relaxed. He works well from distance. He's technically sound. He's got quick hands. He's accurate. He kind of tends to measure his foe, which is impressive. He finds his distance really easily. He's got a great jab. He follows with combinations. He works the body well. Great head movement. He kind of needs really good head movement because I've said this before about him. He baits his opponent to kind of hang his hands low and keeping his chin high, trying to get them to throw at him. Kind of similar to that other Irish guy Conor McGregor used to do. He's got not exactly, but you get my point. Like he's got good power. His step in knees are awesome. He'll step in knees and that's how he closes the distance. He's got a big kicking game, great calf kicks. He's got a quick high kick. I mean, we saw him destroy Daniel Rodriguez with a high kick. He will look to wrestle. He's not a wrestler, but you mentioned he has that judo background, so he can get some foot sweeps and body lock takedowns. I agree with you. Said his grappling is underrated. He's got good top control, hard ground and pound. He does attack with like head attacks, like kind of like his specialty. He likes Darce chokes, anaconda chokes. He showed solid takedown defense against Shavkat Rachmaninoff, which is an area used to be a weakness. He's young enough; we can still make improvements. Prates, on the other hand, I mean, dude is a serious striker. He fights out of bull stance, very relaxed and poised. Likes to work from distance. He keeps guys at the end of his punches. He also hangs his hands low and then just kind of explodes. He can cruise at times, spending too much time picking up reads and giving away big chunks of rounds, especially when he's just throwing single strikes. He won't match his opponent's output. But when he explodes, dude is an absolute sniper. Awesome jab. I love his straight right. His fade back left hand is beautiful. He has scary power, 16 or 17 TKOs. He has so much power. I mean, he's the only person to KO Li Jingliang. He also, it wasn't just like he caught him one time. He buckled him a bunch of times in that fight. And then he one-punched Neil Magny, which is insane. Yeah, he's got a good kicking game, teep kicks, hard calf kicks, quick high kick. I like his stepping knees. Go back to like the Charlie Racky fight where he was stepping a knee and just, oh man, he was just brutalizing. I was like throwing the towel. He avoids strikes by rolling with punches, which I'm not a fan of. But that does, and that's just that very high level kickboxing style where you're, it's built into their style. So I don't think that's going to break anytime soon. He never looks to wrestle, but he's already shown that he's hard to take down. And when he gets taken down, he just pops right back up to his feet. And that team is so hot right now. It's like, how can you bet against them? Dude, this is one of the best matchups of the year. I've really flip-flopped. And it's funny because we see a lot of similarities, very like we're reading this fight very similar, and the things that really stands out to you, like in my notes, I wrote, if someone runs through the other, it's Pratis. Like if someone just absolutely styles and something, it's Pratis. Yeah. But a thing I put in my notes is the size advantage, the cardio advantage, the experience of going 5 rounds. Pratis giving away portions of rounds. Man, when this first announced, I said, oh man, Michel, how ballsy are you? You take your biggest, your first loss of your career, that big gamble you took, and now you got to fight Pratis after that. I was just like, what are you doing? And then more I digged in this fight, I'm like, man, I think both guys gonna have moments. I'm gonna say Michel, he ends the fight nerd streak. I'm gonna say Michel. I'm not as confident as you. I'm going to say my confidence is 0 confidence. And I'm happy that I have 0 confidence because I'm just going to sit back and just enjoy this fight and then really enjoy the recap show and talk about what to do with the winner, especially if Pratis wins. It opens up the doors so much if Pratis wins. And then if Michel wins, he just has that charisma. So it's win-win really for the UFC. But I'm going to say Michel wins. I'm going to say Michel by split decision.
All right, and that concludes the Sherdog Radio Network preview for UFC on ESPN 66, also known as UFC Kansas City. I have been Ben, he has been Keith. If this is your first time watching or listening to one of our previews, first of all, thank you. We hope you enjoyed it. We do our best to bring a mix of in-depth analysis and occasional humorous or historic asides that we think is pretty unique in this space. Please do like, subscribe. Neither of those things cost you anything. They make our bosses happy. They allow us to keep bringing you this content free of charge. Please do drop us a comment. Keith and I both man the comment section. We'd love to hear your take on these fights. There were actually no unanimous upset picks tonight, but each of us picked a couple of upsets. If you think we left any money on the table, let us know. If you think I'm out of my mind picking Anthony Smith to go out on a win, you would not be the first or the only one. Sound off, and if you're right and I'm wrong, I will give you your flowers on the recap. You just have to show up to collect them. We are live on the Sherdog YouTube page right after the main event. Keith takes captain's chair. We'll talk about all 14 of these fights in reverse order, from the headliner all the way down to that women's lightweight opener. I am now hereby predicting that one of the fighters is going to blow weight. We'll talk about what was good, what was bad, what was surprising, what was controversial. There's always something. We'll talk about what's next for some of the notable winners as well as losers, and we will talk with you. The live chat is open that whole time, so we're taking your questions, your comments, and your hot takes in real time. We have a growing community of friends that hang out with us after the fights, and we would love for you to be part of it. Between now and then, thank you once again for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week, and by all means, enjoy these fights.